Part 312. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3125. That kid is thinking about something else. Black God Jia Yan felt the good mood outside the door in the retreat place. But he didn't pay too much attention to it. Only the person involved can figure out how to solve this kind of thing, and no one else can help. My main focus now should be on trading. He went over to investigate the situation, and didn't want to do anything unintentional. If he could really make a deal with the dynasty, and if the access method he mastered could really work, the benefits would be too moving for him. But all this has to be handled by the real person. It is up to him to decide whether to really try a deal or engage in a hypocritical act. So what I want to do now is to go back and see if the real body has finished processing the 6 Tao hearts. The black god Jia Yan is Jia Yan. But from a certain perspective, he no longer belongs to Jia Yan. As early as Jia Yan decided to preserve his individual consciousness with his unique abilities, the black god Jia Yan was slightly different from reality. They seem to have two personalities. Sui. Space oscillates. For many strong men, the defense of the city wall is like a mountain, but for the incomparably tiny black god Jia Yan, it can be easily overcome. Travel into the jungle. But not long after flying, black god Jia Yan frowned. How long will you keep track of me? He silently looked into the depths of the jungle behind him. Oh! You are actually able to discover my existence. You are indeed a character that scares my junior brother. Some surprising sounds came from the jungle behind him, and with this sound, a humanoid-like creature with a sallow face walked out. He is a giant, but he is not that big among the giants. He is probably only a few hundred kilometers away. This is very unique among the giants who often travel thousands of kilometers or even tens of thousands of kilometers apart. Junior brother, you are also a disciple of the Guru, why do you do such sneaky things? Jia Yan sneered. At the same time, my heart felt a little solemn. The disciple last night was difficult to deal with, and now another so-called senior brother has arrived. Wouldn't it be more difficult to deal with? Of course, Jia Yan is not worried about people with this level of strength. Does the arrival of two disciples mean that the so-called guru pays great attention to this Xianshang? Will he come in person? Or is it that people have already arrived? This made him a little confused. If the guru came in person now, he couldn't guarantee whether he would take action directly when his real body couldn't move and the transaction was not in depth. Then all calculations are ruined. Sorry, I am the third disciple of Master Lei. I came late last night and did not see the conversation between you and my junior brother. I took this approach out of curiosity. Please forgive me. The other party looked quite polite. There is no need to take action. But the more this happened, the more Jia Yan was reminded of the description of Smiling Tiger. Such people are often more terrifying. There is no warning when they attack or stab in the back. Now that we have met, I wonder what your excellency, third disciple, is going to say. Jia Yan asked slowly. The old god is here, and he doesn't seem to worry about the opponent's strength. Not that worried actually. Although this third disciple followed him, not even the black god clone noticed anything for a while before. But this does not mean that there is an insurmountable gap in strength between him and his opponent. The other party is probably still close to the level of a senior domain lord. As long as he doesn't have a senior domain master, Jia Yan believes that he can easily enter the subspace and escape. Without the level of understanding of a senior domain master, for him, it is like a strong man who cannot beat himself. No matter how terrifying the power is, it cannot be said to be a threat. The subspace ability gives such a weak clone the confidence to operate in this area. Of course the same goes for the real body. As long as the real body wakes up from seclusion. It's okay if that guru doesn't come. If he does come, let alone him alone, There's nothing to be afraid of if two people of similar strength come. There's nothing to say. The other party's expression was still so indifferent, but his eyes were scanning the body of the clone black god up and down like a curious baby. It doesn't mean that he doesn't care at all, but he is very interested in such a small creature. Jia Yan even read the meaning of researcher in the other person's eyes. If it really falls into the hands of the other party, I am afraid that it will be treated as a research subject, such as going to the dissecting table. Of course, this is completely impossible. If I have nothing to say, I'll leave. Jia Yan smiled and moved his body before leaving. Etc. Suddenly the other party made a sound. What's wrong? The small giant's expression became a little calm and he said, I wonder if you are related to another extraterrestrial visitor who was active nearby a few days ago. Jia Yan's heart moved. The so-called guru's disciple yesterday was not strong enough to threaten the clone, so he did not dare to ask this question directly. But now, this third senior brother thought he was quite capable, so he asked. If the answer is yes, maybe there will be a fight. But how could the clone recognize such a thing? Obviously let the other party call their master. I'm sorry, I don't know who you are talking about, but there are indeed some powerful beings behind me, but this time they are waiting for my reply and have not come over. The other party's face turned serious. The meaning of this thing is very profound. Literally understood, this incomparably small existence does not have much involvement with the master from outside the world who fought against the master. He believed this. Every powerful existence has its own path. The one who fought against the master may not seem big, but at least he is much bigger than this dust-like existence. It is impossible for such a being to have too many ways of contact with this kind of creature, and it is impossible for the race to be the same. So the two are two systems. But the words spoken by this tiny creature had another meaning, which sent a chill down his back. Is there actually some powerful existence behind this person? Is this kind of power as strong as his own level, or is it as strong as his senior brother's level? Or has it reached the level of a master? If you reach the level of master, things will be very serious. The strong man who fought against the master last time was surrounded by two other strong foreign men who were probably not weaker than that man. If what this tiny creature said is true, then there are one or two such powerful people standing behind him. Wouldn't it mean that there are 4 or 5 strong masters similar to the master? Since when have guru-level existences become like cabbages on the roadside? In addition, in the so-called cosmic world outside, are powerful masters walking all over the place? How can it be? You must know that in the entire dynasty, the number of masters serving the dynasty's imperial court can only be counted on 2 hands. If you really want to count, the number of people with similar strength in the entire dynasty will definitely not exceed 3 digits, or even less. There are so many master-level people entering the outside world casually. If that person doesn't take action, wouldn't it be possible to shake the entire dynasty again? His heart beat. I understand. I also agree with the verbal transaction commitment made by you and my junior brother. I wonder if you are ready to execute the transaction now. Yes or no? It's up to you to judge for yourself, but third senior brother, are you prepared to follow me all the way? Jia Yan laughed. He would not honestly tell what he was going to do. If the other party knew that he was going to visit the mysterious master who had a terrible fight with your master last time, he wouldn't just go and report the news. The current situation is that the more he pretends to be mysterious, the more the other party will try to avoid it. Sorry, I don't mean any harm. Please forgive me. After talking to this extent, the other party also knew that Jia Yan was not prepared to let him follow him. Without saying a word, Jia Yan made another quick sound. This time he did not fly, but directly penetrated into the subspace and disappeared without a trace in the eyes of the other party. This is exactly what my junior brother said. The techniques used are unheard of in my dynasty. The expression of the third senior brother changed again. After thinking for a moment, he didn't know what to think of, and flew towards the city without looking back. And not long after he left, an extremely small figure flew out calmly from behind a certain leaf in the forest, silently watching the other person's departure. It was the clone black god who just left through the subspace. In order to prevent the other party from continuing to follow him and to see his reaction, he quietly returned from the subspace. Fortunately, the opponent is not sensitive to subspace. After all, he has never had the awareness to guard against subspace, so he is completely unaware of the small subspace tier behind the blade. Next, it depends on how you two brothers decide whether the so-called Thunder Master will arrive or whether he will actually start a deal with me. He looked deeply for a long time, then turned around again and flew towards the direction of his true body. During this process, he not only flew, but also penetrated into the subspace from time to time, ensuring that even if someone with the same strength as the real body was tracking him, it would be impossible to trace his traces. Finally, we came to the side of the huge tree. The giant tree had suffered shocking damage, but there were still some holes and the like. The real body found a place at random and continued to retreat here. The Taoist heart is suspended beside the true body. This is the artistic conception in Tao's heart. Daolai. This is an extremely difficult force for outside visitors. Even understanding it is quite difficult. Fortunately, the real body has been to the other world once, and his understanding of Tao is far from the level of the other two. After all, when he was weak, he had already learned a lot of Tao techniques and cultivation techniques. Those skills were even reflected in the various techniques Jia Yan later practiced. This is also the fundamental reason why Jia Yan is reluctant to give up his power. Are you here again? Let me see what happened recently. The real body actually still has time to distract. Feeling the arrival of the Black God's clone, a memory poured into his real body's heart. He soon knew what the clone had done recently and what situations it had experienced. I didn't expect that you would go through so much in the past few days. After pondering for a moment, Jia Yan felt the power of the six great minds floating in front of him. After careful consideration, he finally nodded. Forget it, let's just trade. With your list this time, I will find time to try to break through the subspace. I was able to travel through this area back then, so it won't be difficult to do it next time. The clone Black God said calmly, if it is possible, with your true body, you can open up a path that is enough for other clones like us to come in and out, and you can even use the palace as a relay and stabilizing device at the key points. In this way, I don't have to ask you to do it yourself every time. Ken. The conversation between the two stopped abruptly. The clone and the true body are said to be two living entities, but that is not necessarily the case. The two sides are almost of the same mind. There is no need for conversations between the strong and the weak, or between superiors and subordinates. In 2 or 3 sentences, you can communicate with each other in a hurry. After taking a closer look at the realization work that the real body was doing, after just 2 glances, the clone Black God felt dizzy and his head was as big as a bucket, and he quickly restrained his senses. With another sudden sound, the clone flew out of the forest space. He knew that the real body must have made a breakthrough in absorbing the Dao heart, otherwise even if he sensed his arrival after his arrival, he would not make a sound. Being willing to speak out means that you still have some energy left. It also represents the biggest problem in Tao's heart, which has probably been solved for the most part, or maybe even completely. The rest is just water grinding. You read a book. In fact, Black God Jia Yan's guess was not wrong. In that area where the giant trees turned into charcoal, Jia Yan's giant mosquito's real body is wrapped in the power of the 6 great paths. From time to time, it sucks a little bit here and a little bit there, and it also absorbs a certain pattern. We were so stupid back then. There was a strange light in his eyes. The 6 great minds, in his eyes at this time, were like 6 completely different objects. The 3 of them at the beginning simply regarded Dao heart as some kind of heavenly material and earthly treasure. In their eyes, there was no difference between Dao hearts because they could not feel the difference inside. But now Jia Yan is different. The 6 pieces of Dao heart, after he had studied them for so many days and devoured and understood the first piece of Dao heart, were already different. Not the same thing at all. Rather, each of the 6 Taoist minds has its own system and its own direction of adaptation. Just like the attributes such as metal, wood, water, fire, and earth that exist in novels about cultivating immortals, these 6 Tao hearts actually contain very different rules of power. Find the book Garden. At the beginning, they had hastily regarded these Dao hearts as pure objects of enlightenment, treating them all as the same objects, which could be said to be a waste of natural resources. Jia Yan has reached this stage of understanding, but he doesn't know that the way they use it is actually the method with the lowest utilization rate of Taoist heart. In the heart of Tao, the most important and precious thing is Tao power. However, Chu Xing and Ji Qiao did not hesitate to give up their Dao power. Jia Yan swallowed it in. In fact, it is impossible to say who is right or wrong. No matter how good the Taoist power is, it must be used by the right people, otherwise it will be poison. Jia Yan almost fell into the trap. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3126. But now, he is very grateful to himself back then, and also grateful to Chuxing Jiqiao and the 2 for not reminding him. If it weren't for their selfishness, how could Jia Yan discover that in addition to the power of enlightenment, there is such a huge opportunity in Taoist heart? Opportunities often come with great dangers. But Jia Yan is not afraid of danger. As early as the weak Earth mosquito period, he was not afraid of risks and swallowed a large amount of evolutionary fluid. They also compete with a large number of creatures for evolutionary tools. And among those evolutionary tools, which one is not harmful to the body? Therefore, instead of being afraid of the dangers attached to the treasure, Jia Yan welcomed it. Otherwise, how could he see the importance of this treasure? You want me to go out? The real body pondered, and carefully looked at the 6 great spiritual substances in front of him. Finally, he seemed to have made some kind of determination. In this case, he should make a decision quickly. Devour. Puff. The mouth part penetrates into the first Dao heart chosen by thousands of people. A fierce agitation came from the mouth, which contained not only pure power, but also endless Dao power. It was as if humans had tasted the most delicious food, the whole taste exploded in their mouths, and the indescribable excitement was beyond description. A little too exciting, spicy. But it's definitely an unforgettable experience. Jia Yan was ready. At the same time, various thoughts flashed in my heart. Those thoughts are like pictures, outlining Jia Yan's past one by one, and these flashing pictures perfectly contain the Tao power absorbed into his stomach. This is Jia Yan's solution. If the body cannot absorb it in one breath, then he can only use his memory to digest these things, at least until it cannot affect his normal movements for the time being. However, his analysis of memory will cause big problems. But it is better than the power of these Tao in his heart to influence him into a fool now. Things that cannot be digested will eventually be digested, but the compromise we are doing now is absolutely right. Jia Yan praised his intelligence. Buzz. The first Dao heart was swallowed up. Jia Yan's mouthpiece kept reverberating in the air, making him feel extremely delicious. Those Dao powers were absorbed into the sea of memory deep in his mind, affecting a large area of his memory. Jia Yan had deliberately selected less important memory scenes, so overall, these changes were not too big. He will be able to recover easily in the future. It tastes so good. and it won't be long before I can digest it whole. The second one. He moved on. Puff. One by one, the mouthparts completely swallowed the 6 great path hearts into the abdomen, causing the giant mosquito that is now 50 kilometers in size to have a bulging abdomen. Very full. This feeling is something I haven't enjoyed in a long time. But even so, he still didn't feel any breakthrough at all. It has to be said that after reaching the lower level of Domain Lord, a breakthrough in strength is no longer that simple. But, vaguely, in his self-awareness, he felt the hidden artistic conception telling him that if he could devour and digest these 6 great minds, then he will take several solid and stable steps on the road to heaven. Maybe 3 steps, maybe 6 steps. The specific number of steps depends on the effect of his absorption of Tao power. Very well, let's do it. He was extremely eager to have another chance to devour Tao heart. And this opportunity, now the clone has helped him put it in front of him. Buzz. Within the tree hole, huge mosquitoes shuttled out. A large number of mountains and forests caused ripples. The birds and beasts screamed and left. Although this giant mosquito creature flew out, in the senses of the huge creatures in the entire other world, it was not a huge guy. But the sensational power it exudes is completely different from its appearance. Can't Dao power be suppressed? Jia Yan shook his head indifferently. He was not worried that his strength would soon be leaked. Because I won't leave this mountain forest for the time being. It would be nice if there were avatars in the outside world to do things. In this subspace, even the clone can enter and exit, then the real body. Jia Yan's eyes revealed a strange light. As early as the previous stellar level, he had entered and exited the world once in this Xiancheng area. You should be familiar with the road this time. How? I saw the powerful existence in the mountain forest that exuded an extremely astonishing aura, directly emitting bursts of blue brilliance in full view of everyone. The mountain race who had been waiting for a long time came to their senses, and when they looked up at the mosquito creature in the sky with trembling eyes, that great existence had already disappeared. One by one, they finally calmed down their fear. Many races in this mountain forest are not very intelligent. Even if there are, they are indigenous creatures that have lived in this mountain forest for generations. No one would go to the outside world to report such a discovery. And Jia Yan doesn't need them to guard the news all the time. It only takes a few transactions. Even if the identity information is leaked by then, it is hard to say whether the dynasty, who has tasted the sweetness, will take action against him because of his identity. Bear. In subspace. Jia Yan felt the extremely twisted space beside him. Although his eyes were swaying a little, he still flew forward unswervingly. Last time, he was a weak stellar mosquito. They all courageously found a way out. This time he was more than 100 times stronger. If you don't dare to go back to the old path, wouldn't it mean that you are going back to life as you live? So that's it? Last time I just borrowed my subspace instinct and returned along the safest place. Now that I'm walking this twisted passage again, I realize that this should be a natural phenomenon caused by some kind of conflict between the two levels. Jia Yan felt around him. It's not that he went to a shallow dimension. Being able to return to the Milky Way in this area last time can be said to be pure luck. Because around this area, there are still dozens of astonishing depths of space. If there were any slight mistakes, even his current real body might be shattered instantly and crushed into powder by the subspace. But in this passage that has been traveled for a long time, walking along the twisted path that one instinctively feels, there are not so many problems. This is the result of the clear conflict between the deep levels of the two subspaces, just like water and oil, clearly divided into two levels, and the thin line between these levels is the path for Jia Yan to enter and exit. Very good. If the outside world is still normal, then this route is enough for the clones to pass. Except for the clone, no other existence can come in and out freely. Maybe Chuxing Jikiao and the others know this place, and I'm afraid they can be considered as two candidates. But will Jia Yan tell them? Impossible. And even if they knew that Jia Yan had a way in and out, and they even located him near Xiancheng, would they dare to break in alone? Impossible. Without the existence of subspace talents and the experience of walking this road before, Jia Yan can guarantee that they would not dare to enter. Even if they muster up the courage and risk their lives to enter, without a keen subspace talent as a guarantee to seek good luck and avoid disaster, they may not be able to get out of a few hundred meters, and they will get out of the path and die in an instant under the shocking subspace crush around them. Subspace is like a deep and silent dark hell. There is no sound, no reference. I have gone so far here that I even have a sense of illusion as to whether I really exist. Jia Yan enjoyed it as sweet as a cake. It was different from the last time I took this road with trepidation. This time, his strength has greatly improved, and his ability to use and perceive subspace has been greatly improved. So while he was flying, he was comprehending everything in the deep levels of subspace. These deep-seated spaces that should not have been something he could refer to now have entered his field of vision early. Jia Yan discovered an unexpected surprise. That was the enlightenment of Tao power that he had just absorbed, which made him have a lot of associations, and he had a spiritual sublimation of understanding about everything. And this extremely deep space that was difficult to reach suddenly became extremely suitable for him to comprehend with such help. Suddenly I realized a lot of things. It also caused his subspace ability to increase rapidly like a whale sucking water. However, this increase is still temporary. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Groan. Soon after, Jia Yan felt the depth of subspace that he could bear. Although this line is still there. But without hesitation, he stepped out of the scope of this route. The familiar endless distortions around him suddenly pressed down on him like several mountains. But this feeling made Jia Yan sing heartily and heartily at the right time. People who are familiar with subspace enjoy more subspaces that they can bear. The 11th dimension has been conquered so easily by me now. 11 dimensions of space. Before this time, he had never dared to set foot in an area easily. It was precisely because of those two invitations that he finally mustered up the courage to take this step. The effect surprised him. 11 degrees, for him, does not pose any danger. Now that he has stepped into the 11th dimension, Jia Yan smiles again. There is definitely no giant palace led by Edisha in the outside world. Because they have traveled a long distance in the other world. Although it seems that he has not gone very far in the other world, the coordinates of the two worlds are not calculated this way. The subspace outside Xiancheng corresponds to the long-lost Great Spirit Realm. Let's go out and have a look. It's been a long time since I've been here, and it reminded me of a lot of past memories. Jia Yan's cheerful eyes flashed with a faint light. There are many grievances and grudges between him and the great realm of gods. Previously, I had no time, and I was not that bored. I came to the divine realm specifically to seek revenge. But now that he's here, shouldn't it be time to settle this grudge? I don't want to bully the weak, but who knows, I need to trade with the world there. He can't just go to the Orion Arm or the central star field of the galaxy for ordinary transaction content. The first step must be to raise funds for goods in the nearest divine realm. 11 degrees. 10 degrees. 3 degrees. Twice. One time. Puff. The huge giant mosquito body emerged from this twisted subspace. What hit me was the mellow and long-lost aura of the normal starry sky and universe. Although far inferior to it, the air in this world contains a lot of energy and life breath. But the smell of his hometown almost made Jia Yan intoxicated. Who is your excellency? Don't move, huh? Such a big creature. What kind of creature is this? Why is it so huge? Could it be, from there? Damn it, There are creatures running out of there, tell the God Emperor and them to go. Just when Jia Yan first appeared, he saw rippling water all around the subspace, with a large number of communication facilities transmitting urgent messages in all directions. Countless extremely small life forms were running quickly nearby. There are also those toy-like warships cruising nearby, and there are even signs that the main guns are about to fire. Jia Yan is slightly distorted. Anyone who was in a world where trees could easily grow to tens of thousands of kilometers just now, and suddenly went to a place where battleships were only a few 100,000 kilometers away, would have a similar shock and confusion. Over there. He was called a little animal. And here we are. It is directly a behemoth. The gap is a bit big. Fierce. Just for a moment, Jia Yan calmed down and looked at the overwhelming number of warships not far away, and the scurrying of the strong men. Several powerful auras flashed from the distance and flew towards this area like crazy. It was in a distant place just now, but not long after, it flashed in front of us. These are the masters of several stellar realms who have entered into a state of joining forces. It is exactly the level of God Emperor. Oh, the Great Spirit Realm has made some progress in recent years. It actually has an established star-level joint force. Jia Yan smiled slightly and nodded. It seems that this place cannot be underestimated. After all, the cultivation rules and the overall system of strong men in the Great Spirit Realm are very different from those around them, but they still manage so well. It shows that they must be outstanding. Of course. This is said in comparison to the surrounding areas. If it were placed in the central star field of the Milky Way, such a maverick force would have been destroyed dozens or hundreds of times by stronger forces. Who is your excellency? Are you from that weird world? Tell me, how are the several divine emperors sent by us and other divine realms decades ago? What are they doing now? When Jia Yan hadn't spoken to the other party, several voices came from the God Emperor level powerhouse who was shooting towards Shiyuan Oo. Jia Yan smiled and said nothing. It seems that these God Emperors have joined forces, but they are still not aligned. Compared with the Onmyato and joint combat experts that he cultivated, there is still a gap. He couldn't help but sigh. Different strengths, different perspectives on things. In his previous impression, the combined tactics of the gods and realms were extremely powerful and mysterious. Even internally it is overglorified. Now that things have happened, I revisit my old place and see the great joint strategy in my heart. But I just thought, that's it? Not as good as the disciples and soldiers he randomly trained in the central star field of the Milky Way. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3127. There was no other way. Who made him think that the joint warfare method of the spirit realm was the originator of his yin-yang Dao joint warfare method? Maybe it's the result of Daoli's memory modification just now? He shook his head, pushing the emotion out of his mind. The previous distribution of Dao power in the sea of memory caused him to have a lot of discomfort with his own memory, and he always felt that he had remembered everything wrong. Hello. The huge giant mosquito creature speaks the extremely proficient universal language of the universe. In this galaxy, the common tongue is extremely versatile. At least Jia Yan's lingua franca was so pure that none of the beings from the great realm of gods present could compare with him. Not from that world? Who are you? Among the last few warriors who came together to join forces, the leader suddenly stopped fighting. His fist seemed to be still, frozen in front of Jia Yan. The two sides looked at each other. The other party, on the other hand, remained in a state of being borrowed, with several star-level god emperors behind him providing him with a steady stream of energy. Don't be nervous, I'm just a friend passing by. Jia Yan chuckled. The fist flying in front of Quan Dang was air. This also made the other party's expression become more solemn. If it were in that so-called mysterious world, such a huge body would be nothing. But if this person is a strong man from the local galaxy, such a huge size can only explain. Its strength is astonishing. If you do it casually, it will definitely lead to unacceptable results. Creak. He restrained his fists and said coldly, "Friend, I am willing to believe what you say, but if you are passing through this place, why would you disturb so many soldiers in this star field?" Jia Yan saw that although his attitude was gentle, he was still aggressive. His expression suddenly became as cold as ice. "Oh? So, I am wrong. That's not the case, but if you are really passing by, please leave now." "What if I say no?" "You." Everyone in the star level joint team looked at each other for a few times, and then someone laughed. "This outsider, I'm afraid you don't understand where this place is. This is where my spiritual realm is. If you don't want to cause trouble, please follow our arrangements." Jia Yan looked at this person. The other party was unafraid. "Oh? Just rely on a few of you star levels. Look down on us." The stars are filled with indignation again. But Jia Yan's words also made them slightly improve their positioning of the strength of the person in front of them. If you can speak words of stellar level, it means that the other party is not a stellar level. Maybe he is a galaxy level master who is equivalent to the position of God Emperor in their spiritual realm. That kind of level is beyond their reach. The hierarchy of divine positions in the great realm of gods is quite strict. They did not dare to look down upon masters who were equivalent to the level of God Emperors. Not only the strength, but also the gap in status. "Well, originally I wanted to turn a big deal into a trivial matter, but now I want to see what your so-called great realm of the gods is like, and why you are talking big words in such a tone. Lead the way and lead me to you. In front of the real masters of the great spirit realm." Jia Yan made a big wave. With a bang, the power of the brain waves was like a river bursting its banks, instantly flooding into all the surrounding creatures. Not good. What kind of power is this? Suddenly, the entire spirit realm army, no matter the weak starry sky level or the more powerful star level, felt that they were facing a prehistoric beast, and their whole bodies were so stimulated that they were so terrified that they did not even dare to move. Under everyone's stunned gaze, the team of star-level experts who joined forces barely moved. But they were not free from the control of Jia Yan's brainwave power. Instead, the leader showed fear in his eyes and lowered his proud head. For beings in the great spiritual realm, this attitude is normal when facing masters equivalent to the level of God Emperors. His strength and status are far inferior to others, so bowing his head is a matter of course. This senior, I will take you to meet the God Emperor. Lead the way." Jia Yan nodded impatiently. Why does this person feel a bit familiar? In the stellar team, there was a divine realm God Emperor, staring at the towering figure inexplicably, showing a little surprise. The appearance of the giant Mosquito was very similar to the so-called assassin they participated in the encirclement and suppression. Can I think too much? What kind of strength does that assassin have? What kind of strength does this one have? He laughed at himself and lowered his head, not daring to look at that person again. My spiritual realm has entered a bottleneck period. A tall and pure white figure, like an angel, shines on the earth, silently watching the prosperous land of the divine domain that exudes soft brilliance. This prosperous place was created by her lifelong efforts. 12,000 years ago, this woman passed through this great realm of gods and found that this place was ignorant and backward, so she joined the great realm of gods. All believers believe in her and worship him. She also gradually climbed from the weakest level to the supreme God Emperor level in the entire divine realm. The primary peak of the galaxy. Approaching the middle level of the galaxy. But that's about it. As a person born in the central star field of the Milky Way, she understands that her strength is there and she is nothing. Moreover, the unique training system and promotion system of the great spiritual realm may make her increase in strength slower than if she stayed in the central star realm of the galaxy. In other words, the divine realm restricted her development. She was thinking, should I take advantage of the fact that my lifespan has not reached the end, give it a try, resign from the position of God Emperor in this great realm of gods, and go to my hometown to try to see if I can break through the current realm? Maybe there are people in my hometown who can recognize me. If I can borrow the power of my family background, it is still possible for my strength to go further. It's a pity that the strongest member of my hometown family is only a mid-level star. If there is a domain lord level as my background, what else should I consider? Thinking of this, she let out a long sigh. In the central star field of the Milky Way, where the galaxy level travels everywhere, the territory lord level can be regarded as the leader of the party. She believes that she is used to the high-ranking priesthood, and she may be depressed when she goes back, so she will not be able to go for a long time. It's not good, Your Majesty the Goddess. Just when she was wandering in the sky, a junior with stellar strength flew up not far away. She was extremely optimistic about this junior, and originally thought that he should have some self-cultivation. I didn't expect to be so panicked today. No matter what happens, you can't lose your dignity as a god, otherwise you will be no different from a mortal. The goddess emperor said calmly. Yes, the junior who flew over in a hurry spread his wings and saluted her like a real holy angel. What's the matter? Tell me. It's like this. It is said that in that place of space chaos, our god army seemed to have encountered a master. At this time, the master was escorting several god emperors in the army to your side. The goddess emperor's expression changed. She knew that chaotic place because she was the one who ordered the investigation there and sent troops to deploy. There are many treasures in the subspace. As a person from the central star field of the Milky Way, she has vaguely heard people in her family mention that the subspace is connected to the other world. This is why she is very interested in it. Although she is not at the lower level of a territory lord, or even out of reach of the territory lord level, it does not prevent her from studying the world there. Even if it doesn't work, if she sells the information to the powerful people in the Milky Way central star region, there will definitely be many people who are interested. But unexpectedly, a strong man would appear? What's the opponent's strength? I don't know, I just know that it must be above the star level. To solve the problem of the God Emperor's team, I even used only brainwave power to suppress them. The Goddess Emperor's expression suddenly changed again. Only using brainwave power? Then you ask, what is the opponent's size? About 50 kilometers or so. There was a boom. The Goddess Emperor, who was only about 15 kilometers in size, looked pale. Her wing feathers seemed to express her mood, constantly fluttering and shaking, and falling off a large number of white feathers. About 50 kilometers, if we measure it based on strength, and the opponent is not a huge race, its strength is probably. Her trembling lips were unable to form complete words. Region Lord, more than that, he might be a senior domain master, he might even be later level power. Goodoo. She swallowed. If it were a late level powerful person, it would be a no-brainer. If someone wanted to destroy their spiritual realm, it would be a matter of just one sentence. Not to mention doing it himself, just showing his identity, a large number of star forces around him are willing to work for him. Even at the senior domain lord level, there might be a large number of masters willing to take action. Quick, the god of transmission. She wanted to say something else. But before his subordinates could take orders, they heard a surging force coming from behind, shocking the beautiful heavenly stars here. Is this the residence of the God Emperor? You people from the great spiritual domain are quite capable of bluffing people. A calm voice rippled into the starry sky, shocking everyone to the point of being unable to move. As the voice appeared, everyone saw a figure. It looked unhappy, but in fact, as he spoke, he jumped an endless distance and arrived at the residence of the God Emperor. Massive white clouds were swept away by its feet. A large amount of beautiful hallucinatory breath was blown away, revealing the dark nature of the starry sky behind it. The Empress felt the breath of the coming giant mosquito, her whole body felt like it was being struck by lightning, and her face was rosy and ugly. This kind of strength is beyond the limit of her judgment. After all, the gap in strength between the two is too big. You can tell from the simple breath. She knew that the person in front of her was most likely not even a senior domain master. It's possible that he's a junior domain lord. The kind of existence that is capable of running rampant in the entire galaxy's central star field. The realm of gods in a remote area actually provoked such a terrifying master. She was speechless. You are some kind of god emperor, tisk tisk, but you have some appearance. Jia Yan casually looked at the human-looking goddess emperor in front of him and praised her appearance from the bottom of his heart. After all, having wings, wearing scantily clad clothes, and having a holy aura all fit in with his aesthetics. It was just the size of 12 kilometers that made him lose his sense of beauty. The words on the chest are no longer big and big, but mountains and mountains. Meet this senior. Oh, Jia Yan looked at the other person again very interestingly, especially lingering on the curvy figure for a moment, and then said, you actually don't use the methods of dealing with the realm of gods. My god, this junior actually comes from other star fields and knows a lot about the outside world. I see, you are not a pure god. Jia Yan smiled. When he was dealing with the great spiritual realm before, the other party attached great importance to bloodline. But such a god emperor is actually not a serious local god, which means that after meeting the requirements in terms of strength, people will not care about your origin at all. Yes, senior, I don't know who in my spiritual realm has made senior unhappy. If I tell this junior, I will be severely punished. The goddess emperor's attitude and words made the group of stellar masters who followed Jia Yan look at each other in shock. Then they felt as if their parents had died, and their whole bodies were shaking like chaff. Because these words mean that even the masters of the god emperor in their divine realm cannot pose any threat to this 50-kilometer giant mosquito. Once you are suppressed by someone else's momentum, you will not dare to disobey. What kind of existence did they provoke? We can only wait for the reaction of the God Lord. There are ancestors of gods in the entire realm of gods. He is also a supreme being in the realm of gods. His strength is so dominant in the realm of gods that even a large number of powerful masters around him do not dare to challenge him. That person is the master at the command level in the entire divine realm. Strength. No one knows, it's very mysterious. Maybe if the God Lord appears, he can be a little deterrent to this unscrupulous master? I see, Senior came to my spiritual realm and was just passing by. Senior, you want supplies? That's natural, but there's no need to mention money. We, the masters of the divine spirit realm, have interfered with your journey, so we have to make some compensation. These will be considered as belonging to my divine spirit realm. Hey, this list? No problem. When Jia Yan's purpose of coming was expressed in a vague way, the goddess emperor, who looked extremely holy, looked at the list that Jia Yan had already made and grinned. But I didn't dare to say it. In addition to the common valuable materials, it also lists things like star core. What is a star core? That is the most important thing in the planet, and not every planet has it. It is extremely important to the powerful outsiders. Their system of the divine realm does not value star cores, but trading them is definitely an important resource that allows the divine realm to obtain a large amount of foreign exchange. But now, with one stroke of his pen, this man wants 10 star cores. This is going to kill the great realm of gods. But the goddess emperor dared not say it. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3128. Because the way the other party took out the list, it was obviously not someone passing by, but something specifically targeted at the realm of the gods. Blackmail. That's right, it's blackmail. Jia Yan is naked blackmail. If things fall apart, he doesn't mind a friendly threat of force. For the favor of the previous hunt, this was just a small reward, which was already considered as giving face to the divine realm. At the same time, Jia Yan is preserving his own face. It really doesn't sound that good to say that a powerful person in the lower ranks of the territory lord came here to embarrass a small fringe force. So Jia Yan adopted a compromise approach. It depends on how the people in the spirit realm decide their own destiny. Senior, please wait a moment. I will prepare and discuss it right away. Give you 3 days to come up with at least 1/10 of the supplies. 3 days. This is good. The goddess emperor and several angelic temple senior officials behind her left in succession. Jia Yan was left alone in this temple. This temple is interesting. What about the formation? Jia Yan felt that there was a pure power about to move in this temple. It looks like a formation, but it doesn't look like it. It is very similar to the white god magic power he used to create the world. But the power itself was something he borrowed from certain forms of cultivation in the spiritual realm and showed it after telling Edisha about it. This is originality. It's just that this formation is completely different from the formation I have mastered. The threat level is not high. It just depends on whether the guys here have the courage to deal with me. Jia Yan thought silently. He is giving this great power of the gods a chance again. Your Majesty the Empress, are we? Just outside the temple, hundreds of millions of kilometers away, a strong deputy god who had reached the peak of the star came behind the Empress and asked nervously. What he means is that the temple contains the most amazing formation power among their gods. If it is triggered, it should be able to threaten the domain lord level existence. Even if the opponent does not die inside, he will be seriously injured. There is no problem whether they beat the drowned dog or drive this person out of the realm of gods. The Empress's white wings were filled with brilliance. Her eyebrows furrowed, and a pair of huge, mountain-shaped breasts trembled from time to time with her movements. Forget it, this person is not something we can deal with. If we use the power of the formation, we can just kill him. But if we fail, our spiritual realm will be in danger. What's more, the Empress looked at her own palace meaningfully. How can you guarantee that the other party did not see through the palace's formation power? Maybe he stayed in it deliberately and let us take action, so that he could go on a killing spree. Reason. This. The subordinate deputy god Meng's face was shocked. After thinking of something, he was speechless and did not dare to make any more suggestions. Okay, let's follow the other party's words and select and recycle materials. 3 days may not be much, but if we actually do it, we still have a chance. Clear. Jia Yan didn't know whether he was happy or disappointed with the convergence of the spiritual realm. I am happy because the other side of the world is also time limited, and things will change later. But he was disappointed that when he came out this time, no one came to scare the monkeys. The great realm of gods made him extremely miserable at first, but he just got over it so easily. It's also the case that things have come to this. If we break up with them, it will be easy to destroy the realm of the gods, but it will be difficult to get the benefits from the other side of the world. Alas, who wants me to repay evil with kindness? As long as things are done beautifully, spare them, take your life. Jiayan Magpie's nest is occupied by doves. In the Empress's pure white space palace, you can enjoy a lot of benefits. However, after staying in the huge world outside for a long time, there is not even a palace 10,000 kilometers away, and I feel very uncomfortable. I remember that when I was in this galaxy, I had many territories, the largest of which was 100,000 kilometers long. Jia Yan thought, suddenly paused. No, 100,000 kilometers? It seems not. I remember that any force I control has less than 100,000 kilometers of territory, but why do I have the impression? He looked ugly. The problem of Daoli must be resolved quickly. It was Daoli who was affecting his memory just now. Because he evenly distributed the Dao power to the entire sea of memory, there were many slight differences in details in the memory. There is also the divine realm. How did we escape there in the first place? It seems like I was being hunted, and some expert finally came to help. No, it seems like I escaped from the subspace on my own after a narrow escape. Which one is true? He was confused for a moment. Sir, here are the supplies we urgently prepared in this starry sky. Because time is tight, there is only one star core material. You have done a good job. In this case, I will give you another half month. Whether you use the ultra-fast transmission method or collect locally, you must collect half of the supplies for me within half a month and the remaining 2. Can we get it all together within a month? Okay. The Empress looked at Jia Yan helplessly. Jia Yan's requirements are actually very high. Especially the time limit, it almost cost her half of her life in this area. It should be very easy for the entire divine realm to take out 10 star cores. But if she were to be in charge of this starry sky alone, she would really have to sell the iron. All the coffins have to be taken out, and this can only be done by using the force of feeding. After Jia Yan said this, he rolled his feet and rolled 1/10 of all the supplies obtained first into the subspace. Finally, after taking a deep look at the silent Empress, he also stepped into the subspace with his head held high. What a terrible pressure! The Empress was free now, and her whole body suddenly relaxed as if she was exhausted. He should understand Jia Yan's strength best among all the creatures in the space she controls. After all, her strength has reached the galaxy level. But compared with Jia Yan's terrifying power that is comparable to the bright sun, it is nothing more than fireflies competing for brightness with the bright moon. Your Lady Empress, are we just going to hand over all the supplies to him honestly? What if I don't give it? Someone of you has already informed the Lord God. Will the Lord God respond and wait and see for the time being? Yes. The Empress showed an unexpected expression. This is not the first time that the divine realm has encountered powerful outsiders. After she came to the realm of gods, there were at least 2 waves of similar existences. And in those 2 waves, without exception, the supreme god of the divine realm, who was also the strongest Lord God in the entire divine system, and whose strength was comparable to the senior domain lords outside, and even those who might be even stronger, chose to shrink back. Because of this person's attitude and cowardice, many elders from the great spiritual realm chose to leave the jurisdiction of the great spiritual realm and became strong men with freedom from the outside world. She had already guessed this time that the shrunken Lord God would probably choose to turn a blind eye again. After all, the person coming may be someone who has surpassed the senior domain lord level. At least in terms of her feelings, it must have surpassed that of a senior domain lord, and the sense of energy exuded by the giant mosquito-like creature exceeded that of the Lord God. Okay, let's not mention these. You quickly go to the warehouses in various places to collect the supplies the other party needs. Clear. Watching her subordinates leave, the delicate-faced goddess emperor shone with some doubts and haggardness. Now it seems that this great realm of gods is not a good destination. I still have more than 10,000 years to live, so I might as well leave after this. She has given up on the realm of gods. And deep in her heart, some doubts emerged. That person has left. I can feel that he is flying towards the deepest levels of the subspace. Why bother to transport such a small amount of supplies personally? Could it be that the other party is short of supplies? It doesn't seem like it. She could also see Jia Yan's anxiety. But she never imagined that the reason for Jia Yan's anxiety was the so-called other world that they had been exploring for decades but could not enter. Grown. Once raw, twice cooked. Jia Yan has walked through the passage several times. This journey back is actually much easier than before. It was much smoother too. The power of his brain waves formed a powerful protective box, locking the supplies firmly behind his back. A large amount of supplies may seem like a lot, but in fact it is not as much as imagined. At least it wasn't much bigger than his body. Such a thing may be suitable in the Milky Way, but in the other world, people there will not recognize these materials. Jia Yan looked behind him thoughtfully. The huge amount of creatures and rich materials in this world are simply unheard of. With such a small amount of supplies, the size is unlikely to be noticed by the other party. The supplies spread over tens of kilometers may seem like a lot, but they are not enough to feed the people of the other world who often travel thousands of kilometers away. So we have to package it later. Although it may not be able to see its original appearance, people in the other world can't know what it looks like. Jia Yan didn't know that his temporary idea at this time would mislead the other world for many years. It is not until the worlds of both parties become more harmonious and there is more communication that the mystery can be solved. Rest, rest, rest. When traveling through the extremely twisted deep subspace, even Jia Yan was still quite nervous, observing his surroundings from time to time. There is nothing stable about subspace. This route that seems to be stable for a long time is probably mutating all the time. A seemingly harmless place may suddenly become a dead end. So Jia Yan needs to be very careful. Fortunately, only such a short time has passed, and this line cannot become unstable directly. So he passed the line easily, and when he came to the subspace, he gradually lost control and could only use part of the area. Puff. A giant mosquito figure swaggered directly out of the depths of the mountain forest. In this world, giant mosquitoes are only a little bigger than ordinary small creatures. The surrounding mountains, forests, and trees are as huge as planets. Makes people feel unreal. He's back again. He was so arrogant just now. When he came here, he was directly beaten into a small creature. Tisk tisk, this sense is really uncomfortable. Jia Yan was speechless and choked. Smiling, he let the supplies enter the cave beside him and looked at the location. The distance from the woods where he traveled out of the other world was only 50 to 60 million kilometers, which was quite close for traveling around the world. After thinking about it, he gave up the idea of making supplies right away. Instead, he picked up a pile of high-end supplies from the Milky Way that were about the same size as him and headed towards the mountain forest where he left. It is more convenient to go to a familiar place. Coming. Just when Jia Yan's true body returned to this world. Jia Yan, the clone in Xian City, opened his eyes in a clear voice. Senior. In front of him was Xuanghao, who was practicing with him with his eyes closed. You don't need to worry about it. I have something to do here. You should practice well and don't go out. After a few days, you can return to the world as a normal resident. Yes. Both sides are a little uncomfortable. He has gained a lot of height and weight recently. It almost has the giant-like figure of a child when Jia Yan first saw Xuanghao. Even if he goes out now, many giant residents will only regard him as a shorter member of the same race. Instead of the little human beings who were the all-powerful people in Xiancheng and stirred up countless blood rains. After the black god Jia Yan finished speaking, he stood up and left this retreat. Only the two lovers were left, sighing in this cramped space, unable to calm down and practice. How should I explain to those people next? Will the people who join the City League still believe me in the future? He thought sadly. It has been several days here, and even Jia Yan has not met those who entered the city. It is said that in the past few days, because the city entering alliance had no commander, although they tried their best to help Jia Yan collect intelligence, they still suffered heavy casualties. Nearly one-third of the strong men led their subordinates to declare their separation from the city, entering alliance in exchange for the city leader. Pardon from the government. You, who are you? Suddenly, about 10 minutes after the black god Jia Yan left, a horrified cry appeared behind Shuang Hao. His hair stood on end and he quickly looked behind him. Logically speaking, his strength is not bad either. If a powerful person from outside approaches, he should be able to feel it. But this person's arrival didn't cause him much alertness. You, this face, is, a good person. That person was actually a master. His strength had reached the peak of the mid-level star. He was absolutely powerful, and his ability was to hide his traces. No wonder Shuang Hao didn't notice his arrival. Find bookstore. The other party had seen that for so many days, both friends had only heard his voice but not seen him. The mysterious master who entered the city alliance had also refused to show up for a long time, so he was frightened and uncertain, and finally chose to take a relatively extreme approach. Use your abilities and sneak in quietly to see what's going on. Dao thought that when he approached, he actually saw the huge figure of the giant race. The reason why he couldn't help but scream out in surprise was that when the giant turned around, the face he saw in a startled look was exactly the same as that of Mr. Shuang Hao. For a time, countless possibilities and horrifying conspiracy theories emerged in the mind of this strong man. His expression changed drastically and he walked backwards. Shuang Hao was also frightened. He quickly wanted to reach out and explain, but he slapped the simple retreat to pieces. Giant sneak attack. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3129. Facing the master's face, he looked like he had discovered some secret, and ran away. Shuang Hao's expression was extremely embarrassing. He just had the opportunity to take action and save this person. But he chose to stop at the last moment. The relationship between the other party and him was not very good, but he was also involved. If you stay, the relationship was definitely broken. Don't leave him alone. It's over. It seems that my momentary hesitation caused a bigger problem. Shuang Hao was filled with regret. Puff. Subspace breaks apart. An extremely small figure traveled out of the subspace, floating in the direction of the wind, and arrived at a cave. This cave area is the ruins of a huge tree that collapsed. It came quickly. The giant mosquito was crawling in the cave. Watching the arrival of the black god Jia Yan, the two sides quickly exchanged memories. Black god Jia Yan soon felt that there was something wrong with the memory on his true body. Because both parties were the same person, Sun Zhen's confused memory also caused him to have memory problems. Well, I remember that among the 6 subordinates of the divine realm over there, some of them are at the galaxy level. Wrong, there must be no galaxy level. This is all wrong. The influence of Dao power is really terrifying. Black god Jia Yan looked uncomfortable. Everything is here. Take it away at once. I will keep an eye on it during the transaction. The real body said angrily. The clone black god nodded, snapped his fingers, and packed all the supplies into the listed packages and flew directly into the subspace. Without saying a word, he dived into the depths of subspace. Silently and disappeared. The real body couldn't help but nodded as he looked at the black god clone's mastery of subspace. This clone's ability to utilize subspace has already surpassed that of ordinary clones. If the black god clone did not have a deep grasp of the subspace, it would be impossible for him to move in the subspace outside this world without the subspace talent. Even the real body is more difficult. It can be seen that it is quite correct to split some clones in a way that is close to independence. Of course, you can't have too many choices. Otherwise, there will definitely be an existence that gradually develops independent consciousness and even backfires on the real body. Xiancheng. When the city was first established, many mysterious phenomena occurred, hence the name. Now I know that the origin of this Xiancheng is actually related to the so-called extraterrestrial visitors. Inside Xiancheng, the three disciples of the guru and their junior brother were drinking tea together. The two sides have discussed the situation in this area for a long time. To them, the affairs of Xiancheng at this time also involved visitors from outside the world. But it is far from the level of the matter that Master is dealing with, that powerful alien from outside. Even though the insignificant alien visitor who came had no preparation, his strength was not comparable to that of the guru. Even willing to trade with their lineage. If that extraterrestrial visitor really had the materials, he said, coming from this lineage would definitely be a good thing for their future advancement. Therefore, they took over the matter without hesitation. Third senior brother, do we need to report to Master? Report? What to report? If we report, what if Master asks the senior brother or second senior brother to take charge? The expression of the Guru's disciple, who was the first to come into contact with Jia Yan, suddenly solidified. This is what third senior brother thinks of. He said sarcastically. So, junior brother, if you think about the matter comprehensively, it will be safe if you report this matter, but the benefits of this matter and the credit for the entire matter will not fall into your hands. Yes, it's junior brother. I took the liberty and didn't think enough. It's okay, I'll give you a heads up on this matter. If you want to report it, senior brother, I won't stop you. No, we should take responsibility first, wait until the transaction is almost completed, and then tell the Master and the others. The younger brother has finally figured out the key. If they work hard to handle the matter, not only may they get benefits during the transaction, but the matter may even fall to them to handle in the future. After all, if you change someone else, not only will the whole thing be less perfect, but the other person will definitely feel unaccustomed to it. In this way, the credit will be obtained, the status of the two of them will also be improved, and they may even get the benefits of the transaction. Why not? The junior brother suddenly felt that there were indeed many gaps between himself and his senior brothers in how they behaved. Buzz. Just as the two of them were communicating, the space in a corner of the city lord's mansion was suddenly torn apart. The unabashed spatial fluctuations caused both of them to react suddenly and look at the torn space warily. The third senior brother's eyes were fixed there, and he seemed to have some understanding. The opponent's strength lies entirely in this elusive skill. If there is a way to break this method, he thinks it shouldn't be too difficult for him to defeat this person. Pity. That space is too rare and seems to be only valid in this Xiancheng area, so no one from the outside world has studied it. With his eyes darkened, even if he wanted to do research, he definitely wouldn't be able to do it in a short while. You two are quite relaxed. The rather clear voice of Black God Jia Yan sounded in this space. The two disciples of the Master watched with burning eyes as he surged out of the subspace. Behind him seemed to be a bulging bag, carrying a large amount of supplies. But after he flew out, the material was directly blocked by the subspace seal. This gentleman has filtered it. We are not waiting for leisure, but waiting anxiously. It is better for both of us to wait for you together. The third senior brother laughed. Haha, Your Excellency is quite a man of temper. I have brought the supplies here this time. I wonder if you have already prepared the things you have prepared. Jia Yan looked at each other with a smile. The three of them were not friendly friends to begin with. At this time, speak more directly and get things done quickly. Otherwise, you will have long nights and many dreams. You are very quick to talk. We don't have many emergency supplies here, but you probably won't have too many things in your hurry. Here is the list we have prepared. Take a look and see if it matches what you are bringing this time. The supplies will be matched accordingly. The three senior brothers took out some lists of supplies, but their eyes kept lingering on the direction of the subspace that Jia Yan had just closed. He knows. Those supplies are just outside the space over there. But for people in the other world who don't have access to the subspace, no matter how close the subspace is, they can't snatch it. They do not have the ability to open subspace. I can only sigh in despair. Wait a minute, let me take a look. Black God Jia Yan waved his hand, and a huge piece of paper flew into the air. He simply fell on the paper and began to look at it slowly. This piece of paper is the size of several football fields, and the words on it are extremely huge. After looking at it for a moment, Jia Yan nodded. It's a pity that the supplies you have struggled with in a few days are not even as good as the supplies I hastily gathered. I have twice as many supplies this time, so I can only trade half of them to you first. Haha, after all, we here in Xiancheng are not local snakes. We need coordination from the Xiancheng department and there are many problems. The three senior brothers made another move, and then said, why don't we trade this part of the supplies first? As you can see, the Dao heart you mentioned is in the supply list. We can take a look first. What do you call a specialty of your world? Especially the star core. Jia Yan knew that the other party could not easily believe that their external materials were as good as he said. Typical of not letting go of the eagle when you don't see the rabbit. Okay, let me let you two see if the materials in our world are what you want. Jia Yan stretched out his hand, and the subspace split open. This time the two disciples carefully examined the subspace power. They finally felt some kind of space power, but this power was extremely profound and mysterious. For them, it was definitely not something that could be cracked through simple research. If they were in front of an ordinary subspace master, they might still be able to copy the cat and imitate the tiger. But how can Jia Yan's subspace skills, even the subspace skills of his clone, be something they can study thoroughly? And the external subspace is not a simple subspace. It is a subspace place with unknown depth. The opening method is by no means simple, and even Jia Yan, who is as clever as Chu Xing, would not dare to try it. Not to mention them. I couldn't understand how the space was operated this time. After a flash, some supplies came to this space. Huh? These supplies are quite big. The two disciples were surprised. Jia Yan nodded calmly, of course it is. The materials and treasures I have in the outside world are also very specific, so they are quite precious. What he said was quite reasonable, but the materials that flew out were by no means extremely precious. And the size is by no means as huge as the two of you see now. Instead, Jia Yan's clone deliberately found some local supplies in the woods before, shattered them with brainwave power, and then mixed them with the supplies brought in to finally form a confluence of supplies. The real external energy body inside may not even contain 1% content after dilution. But what Jia Yan wants is the overall appearance. In the future, when there are more transactions, this kind of superficial fraud can be eliminated, but now, it is still necessary. Otherwise, the supplies that others take out are used by people in their other world. But on my side, I only took out secret treasures that were a few kilometers or even a kilometer away. They couldn't compare with one of their fingers. Doesn't it seem a little stingy here? If you don't mind, can I try this so-called body-enhancing substance? The third senior brother watched Jia Yan release the materials from the subspace, and the feeling of uncertainty in his eyes became more and more intense. No one is a fool. Since it was something from another world, why did he feel that many substances looked so familiar? After all, it was something mixed with 99% local substances, so he naturally looked familiar. There was no sense of another world as he imagined, which made him involuntarily doubtful. Sure. Jia Yan nodded. It is normal for the other party to be suspicious. The physical enhancement material selected by the third senior brother is not the best among all materials, but it is definitely not the worst. The list was out there, and he certainly wouldn't choose the bad one. If it is effective, according to the effect given by Jia Yan, this material will have a certain effect on beings like them who only cultivate Taoism and not the physical body. He took the small piece of physical substance from the supplies. Just take it, Jia Yan reminded. The other party nodded, looked at his junior brother, carefully looked at the substance in his hand, and swallowed it into his mouth as if he was risking his life. Generally speaking, there are very few poisons that can deal with a strong person like him. The other party seemed to have no need to use poison to kill him. After all, it would be extremely unwise for such a small human race to offend a master, especially since they all saw that the other party really wanted to make a deal in their dynasty. Gudu. Along with the devouring process, under the nervous gaze of the younger junior brother, his third senior brother's eyes quickly closed. After experiencing it for 5 full minutes, he opened his eyes again. Puff. The man punched him out. Jia Yan dodged away casually. Boom. A burst of air burst out in the air. Very good. It's indeed a good thing. It's really helpful for my physical body. His eyes suddenly turned red, and he looked at the other supplies Jia Yan took out, filled with fanatical emotions. After all, in this world, it is difficult for a person with domain lord level strength like him to have any material that can make him feel comfortable in an instant. You read a book. But this substance actually made his body visibly improve. Although the total amount of improvement may only be a few % of his original body strength. But this improvement already made him ecstatic. And Jia Yan said that the substance he swallowed was only the upper middle level among all trading items. The best star core is definitely a treasure level. Maybe for the masters of their dynasty, the effect will be better than taking Tao Xian. His eyes were shining, staring at the subspace where Jia Yan had just taken out the supplies. He clearly saw it just now. At the end of all the supplies, there was a larger spherical substance. Maybe it's the so-called star core. Heavy treasure. Sir, please follow me to get our supplies. We will exchange them on the spot according to the transaction details and content you have drawn up. Your Excellency, third disciple, is really quick to talk. Come to Shiyuan. Jia Yan smiled pleasantly. In a friendly and pleasant atmosphere, the three of them walked towards the area where the temporary warehouse of the Xiancheng City Lord's mansion was located. For both parties, this transaction is just a small trial meeting for subsequent large-scale transactions. Therefore, even the other party was not too vigilant. They even thought that if Jia Yan wanted to steal supplies, just let him steal them. This can also show that he has no sincere trading thoughts and can avoid more serious losses. But this time, Jia Yanzhen brought a batch of extraterrestrial materials, which immediately made the two master disciples happy. Not to mention that I completely believed in this insignificant alien visitor, at least I had the foundation for the next transaction. Look, the materials here should be enough to offset the batch of external treasures you brought this time. A Taoist heart is also among them. Are you satisfied? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3130. Looking at the dazzling array of supplies. Especially the faint aura of Tao Xian that was revealed in one of the sealed boxes made Black God Jia Yan smile. Satisfied, extremely satisfied. By the way, my name is Assassin. Haha, after such a long time, the assassin revealed his real name. But we can understand, because we didn't reveal our real names either. Let me introduce myself now. My name is Daiji, and I am the third disciple of Lei Master. My name is Dao, I am the seventh disciple of Master Lei and the youngest disciple at the same time. Both of them have the word Tao in their names, Or is it possible that all the disciples under the Guru have the word Tao in their names? Jia Yan chewed on this new discovery. In addition, the person fighting against the real body should be the so-called Thunder Master. The power of thunder and lightning. It is worthy of its name. The three of them finally made friends again, as if they had never known each other before. Then the official transaction began. It is said that it turns hostility into friendship, but in fact when it is the turn of the transaction, no one is willing to suffer a loss. Banging the table, shouting loudly, and all kinds of intentions to raise or lower prices are quite obvious. In the end, both parties roughly got what they wanted and were satisfied. Jia Yan, on his side, finally put a Taoist heart of about medium size into his bag, and he couldn't help but smile a little. This transaction was very successful. I hope we can maintain a friendly trading relationship in the future. That's natural. Just don't let us wait too long, Mr. Assassin. It's easy to say that everyone is straightforward, so I will take care of it. In about a month, I will be able to send you the share of the second transaction. The amount will only be more than this time, not less. I hope you can have the trade goods ready. Really, the two brothers looked at each other warmly and said in unison, then we will be waiting for you. They gave no guarantees. Because what follows is a complicated process of verifying efficacy. If the so-called external substances have different effects on them, or are not that good, the next transaction will naturally be non-existent. But the results are guaranteed. Not to mention this assassin, he doesn't have a serious feud with the dynasty. Even if he does, he can definitely tolerate it. Burning down the city lord's mansion in a remote place is really not a big deal to them. Even if this small human race is involved with the one who attacked Lay Master before, they can choose to forgive him. Trade, especially single-share trade, is always the best interest of a monopoly. As long as it is not a feud or a mortal enemy, a strong person can choose to forgive and give up. In the direction of Xiancheng, Master Lay's disciples had a drink and chatted with the visitors from outside the world, and the transaction went smoothly. A happy and harmonious look. But it's not far outside Xiancheng. However, a large number of visitors from outside the world were involved in this incident. Ah! Sir, I am just a person who accidentally entered your world, don't kill me. Really, I really don't know any blood-sucking insects. Ah! In a city, there is a row of various creatures hanging in a prison. Some of these creatures are large, some are small, and some even have almost the same appearance as giants. But they were all visitors from outside the world who were discovered through investigation and evidence collection. Puff. A giant-like creature had its head cut off with a knife. Sigh, you're really tough. An existence whose strength was about the level of a domain lord snorted and spat at the headless corpse. Elder brother, please don't get really angry. It's not worth it for these sneaky and weak aliens. A creature watching from the side smiled and comforted. You don't understand. I thought at first that the aliens from the outside were tall and stalwart in my impression. They were at least on the same level as the ones we fought with Master last time. I didn't expect that they would be caught in a pile here, and all of them were still there. It looks like a mouse, it just ruins childhood. The creature called Big Brother came to sit next to the ladder. They were sitting in the center of the prison, and the walls around them were covered with life forms that had been subjected to various tortures. Everyone was silent, watching them eat and drink. Senior brother, if you think about it, this is normal. The latter laughed and served good wine to the senior brother, and said, the aliens from the outside must also have different levels of strength. Besides, listen, these guys said that their life forms are actually different from that of the strong man before. I'm afraid they are in the outside world and are extremely far away from the area where that person lives. They don't know each other at all. I'm afraid they even have very different races. These are not two kinds of existence at all and cannot be compared. The senior brother sighed. Yes, I was also shocked when the torture came out before. I didn't expect that the outside world they were talking about was actually the universe, and that universe is vast and boundless. It is probably bigger than the world our dynasty is in. It's hard to imagine what that kind of world is like. They marveled. The creatures in the cosmic world are also extremely mysterious to the other world. It seems that most of them are not very big, but there are also tall people hanging on the wall who are comparable to the giants, which shows that there are many kinds of creatures in the universe world. The so-called light years, galaxies, galaxy clusters, all kinds of terms made these experts from the other world who had mastered this knowledge for the first time feel numb. Even they don't know how big the inner world is, and how many forces similar to the dynasty are outside the dynasty, but even so, they can vaguely feel that the world of the universe is probably a world far larger than the world where the dynasty is located. While they were fascinated, they also asked how these guys came to the world of dynasty. Unfortunately, the answer obtained was unclear. Every extraterrestrial visitor who comes has his or her own reasons. But without exception, they all came here through some kind of space. Some of them call this space subspace, while others call it inner space, and others call it mysterious space, supreme God world. To name a few. But according to their torture, this space should be the same thing. And they did an experiment before. I accidentally opened the so-called subspace. A prisoner on death row from the imperial dynasty was thrown into it, and not long after, the person was pulled back with only half of his body left. It didn't take long, less than a second. Several lay master disciples were really frightened. You must know that this so-called death row prisoner is actually an intermediate Taoist master who has been sentenced to death. It is roughly a galaxy-level existence. But in less than a second, the space was squeezed into powder. So, the existence that fought against the Thunder Master should be in that world, and he is definitely not a weakling. Based on their answers, that should be the case. The two senior brothers were chatting, and suddenly the eldest brother listened attentively, and then nodded. Junior brother, there seems to be something interesting happening over there with their junior brother. You go over and take a look. Good. The latter didn't ask anything and stood up directly. He knew that senior brother was still busy here. Moreover, as the second senior brother, although his overall strength cannot be compared with the first senior brother, he is definitely not weak. If there is a situation that he can't solve, it's difficult for his senior brother to solve it, and he has to step forward. As soon as his figure flashed, the latter disappeared into the prison in a flash like lightning. Okay, I just received news from one of my disciples. There are some interesting guys among you cosmic people. To celebrate the appearance of another character among you, how about we play the skinning game next? The eldest brother stood up with a ferocious smile and looked at the various biological bodies all over the wall. No, I'll tell you anything. The many creatures hanging on the wall had tears and runny noses running down their faces, and each one started wailing. Under such harsh torture to extract confessions, they really wished that their ancestors for 18 generations could tell them clearly. Third senior brother, you say, is it really okay to let second senior brother get involved? Hey, you still want to take advantage of this? In Xiancheng, the two junior brothers guarding the treasure house had other meanings in their jokes. The third senior brother Daoji looked deeply at the youngest junior brother, and finally shook his head and said, "Seventh senior brother, you have only just started, and you really don't understand many things. Such benefits cannot be obtained by you and me alone, and even this matter, I waited for a reason. This kind of contribution is enough to make us take more seriously. If the master does not directly intervene in the next thing, at least a senior brother or a second senior brother must intervene to protect our interests. Otherwise, do you believe that if we delay for too long, we may even lose the initial benefits? Well, thanks to third senior brother for your pointers, I probably understand. Seventh junior brother Deoeo was startled, as if he thought of something. He nodded repeatedly. After the transaction was completed yesterday, they personally tried several expensive supplies on the list under the pretext of testing. The physical fitness was indeed strengthened very quickly. However, Deoji was still relatively rational and did not choose to swallow up all the supplies. It seemed that after hiding some of the things under the name of testing, he chose to inform his senior brother. But the senior brother wrote back, saying that he was unavailable and asked the second senior brother to go. Obviously, it seems that the understanding of this matter is not clear enough, or it is not taken seriously enough. As a result, Deoji is helpless. Once the second senior brother comes, he may swallow up part of the first batch of supplies with certain requirements, leaving not much for the senior brother. But there is no way. You two are really capable of pulling off all these tricks in this small town in a remote place. The electric light flashed as they arrived at the VIP reception courtyard of the Xiancheng City Lord's mansion. I've met second senior brother. Deoji and Deoeo both got up quickly to see this visitor. No need to be too polite, let me see what your so-called aliens trading materials look like. It didn't take long. After being explained by the two junior brothers and taking certain supplies in person, the lazy eyes of the second senior brother suddenly changed. Very well, you did a great job. Give me half of these supplies for research purposes. Do you have any objections? In addition, this batch will be studied by senior brother. The remaining part will be selected from each type and handed over to the officials of the Imperial Court. They will be sent to the Imperial capital. Some of them must be reported to the Imperial capital for research. Under the second senior brother's request, which was like robbery, Deoji and Deoeo nodded bitterly, yes. After counting and distributing all the supplies, the second senior brother couldn't help but look at the largest star core. The star core is completely different from the dozens of kilometers in size brought by Jiayan. The star core, which is mixed with local materials, is about several hundred kilometers in size. It looks quite intimidating when taken out, but the jewels and jewels on it are still so coveted. Especially the second senior brother also knows that the most valuable thing in this batch of materials is the star core. He looked at the two junior brothers behind him. The two of them also knew what the senior brother had in mind. Second senior brother, this thing, according to what the assassin said, it may even be beneficial to Master Lei. If you want, you need to think twice. Deoji had no choice but to move the master out. Humph, senior brother, I am not that kind of corrupt person. But if this thing is to be tried by the master himself, someone must check it for the master. You are not strong enough, so I am afraid that you will not be able to test anything. So, it will be between me and the senior brother. I will carry out this test for master, and senior brother and I will each take 1/10 of this item. If it is valid, the remaining 80% will be left to master for disposal. That's okay. The two smiled bitterly and did not dare to say anything else. After all, their strength is indeed insufficient. If they want to benefit from the star core, I'm afraid it will be difficult for them to get involved. As he spoke, the second senior brother had already distributed the supplies, and not long after, he had cut the star core and was ready to leave. But before leaving, he paused. By the way, what's the assassin you're talking about, the so-called alien visitor, right? How strong is it? He said calmly. Because they had dealt with a large number of extraterrestrial visitors these days, he and his senior brother had already lost the sense of mystery towards extraterrestrial visitors. If the opponent lacks strength, or has any character flaws, he doesn't mind using them against him, and he may be able to get the so-called external channel. After all, it is better to hold the trading channels in the hands of others than to hold them in your own hands. Anyway, according to the information he got, the number of space people is huge. If they can get that channel and leave the Imperial world, they may be able to disguise themselves as space people from the outside world. Some of the clues can also be from distant galaxies. The outsiders prevaricate. Aren't such huge interests in their own hands? That assassin. Daoji and Daoao couldn't help but look at each other, and then became solemn. Second senior brother, we know what you mean. However, junior brother, I would like to advise you to try not to have any ideas about that person. This person, I'm afraid it's not simple. Daoji's words made the second senior brother look moved, and he said in a deep voice, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3131. The man's own strength is a mystery. The key is, the kind of space technique he masters is almost incomprehensible to the strong men of our dynasty. No solution? Do you think I will believe it? If senior brother doesn't believe me, I can't help it. What I also want to say is that this person can connect with the outside world, which means that he is really capable, or the forces behind him are capable of sending others into the dynasty, and if there is really someone behind him. Words from many experts. When Daoji said this, he paused. The second senior brother was slightly silent. Right. He confused the other extraterrestrial visitor who was imprisoned with him and others. The two cannot be compared. Those who were caught were all rubbish. They could not even be called aliens. They could only be regarded as alien rubbish. And this person is not only strong, but also has the ability to actively enter the world of the dynasty, so he deserves to be taken seriously. I understand. As for the assassin, let's not touch him for the time being. In a month, I will go back to meet Master and the others. The second senior brother nodded and rose into the sky. What he didn't know was that the person he wanted to investigate was in a mountainous forest he was flying past. But if you knew it, it would definitely not be a good thing. Because that person is surrounded by their brothers and even their master, they need to be extremely vigilant. Jia Yan's true body. Sure enough, he has a Taoist heart. Jia Yan's real body's brainwave power stirred up and took out the Taoist heart from all the materials. It seemed like someone had cut it a little bit, but Jia Yan didn't care. Through memory sharing just now, it was already clear what the clone had done. Supporting the so-called entering the city alliance is what the clone is doing, but it is also a good thing for his apprentice. He agrees. By the way, both apprentices have disappeared for several days, but what happened? I haven't had time to investigate yet. I'll take a look when I get back. The clone and the real body had a rare chat. Not long after, the tiny clone rode the wind and flew towards the sky. The real body, on the other hand, took advantage of the sweetness of the transaction and knelt down to slowly enjoy it. Actually, apart from Dao heart, other resources may not be simple either. The giant mosquito was in the cave, looking at all the supplies with burning eyes. Among these materials, more than 80% are marked as being beneficial to the spiritual realm. Most of the treasures in the normal space of the universe are physically strong. From Jia Yan's point of view, compared to the other world, most of the treasures are stronger in the soul. In fact, Taoist power is, at a certain level, a power originating from the soul. He devoured the Dao heart in an extremely dangerous way. It even caused memory confusion. But what if local spiritual resources are used at the same time? Wouldn't it also have a big effect? He tentatively stuffed something called a whisker pill into his mouth without even trying. Sure enough, there was a cool taste like nectar, spreading from the mouthparts and soon permeating the whole body. Gradually, his body also felt this unique charm, and under its influence, the chaotic Tao power was slightly coordinated. It sounds complicated, but it's actually very simple. It has a certain soothing effect on the brain. And this is exactly what Jia Yan needs most. It's indeed a good thing. Jia Yan was surprised to see the remaining Fashion pills and things with similar effects to the whisk pills. After using these, it might be possible to offset the influence of a Taoist heart on his soul. With more use, his disordered memory can be repaired to the greatest extent, and the rest won't affect him for too many years, and it will make up for itself. He felt greatly that the clone had made a great contribution. Puff! An earth-shaking arc of lightning flashed across. Between heaven and earth, miserable roars of filial piety were heard. The unwilling voice soon stopped. As the voice paused, two figures emerged faintly. This so-called strongest person in the circle is nothing more than that. Please calm down the Taoist heart in him. Hey, will it be divided equally this time? Good. Two figures exuding power fluctuations completely different from those in the other world appeared next to the huge dead body. And beside them was an army of native creatures with wild eyes. Ha ha ha, these two masters are indeed extraordinary. This dog is a well-known imperial dog. It specializes in killing those who rebelled against our emperor. Now it is easily solved by these two masters. Masters are so clever. I'm afraid that the so-called masters in the dynasty are nothing more than this. The group of onlookers didn't mind at all the way the two men were collecting corpses, and they didn't mind the fact that they turned a blind eye to themselves and the others. They just respected them immensely. These local weaklings really regard us as the ceremonial master. Ji Jiao looked at the creatures around him and found them extremely boring. If they want to fight against the so-called strong men of the dynasty, they naturally need the guidance of the strong. The weak ones inside are those who follow the crowd, but there must still be people who can see clearly. I am afraid that the identity of outsiders like us has been seen clearly. Oh? Then why haven't they broken it yet? If it were you, would you point it out? How can they find someone with such strength like me? That's right, it doesn't matter anyway. Before the real masters of the so-called dynasty come, I'll just wait and gain as much benefit as possible. That's natural. It's a pity that Jia Yan was delayed for a period of time by a so-called guru and then separated. Otherwise, we can be bolder. 3 masters above the guru level are enough in this dynasty. Rampant. The 2 outsider masters expressed regret. But only they know best what they think in their hearts. If Jia Yan was really killed by the guru, they would at best reduce the probability of his return. Moreover, if you really think Jiji is adventurous and enters the other world without any backup preparations, you would be underestimating the veteran masters of the lower level domain masters. It's just that this backhand probably won't include Shuxing. So Chu Xin has been clinging to Ji Jiao lately. Old friends are old friends. When he really wants to betray him, he believes that Ji Jiao will leave him without hesitation. The benefits of this trip are still huge. They plan to evacuate and return to the outside world before attracting the entire dynasty's preparations and using all their strength to deal with them. They will wait until they have digested the benefits of this trip before re-entering. After a few times, I believe that the unreachable level above the lower steps will also wave to them. I don't know what is happening to Jiqiao and Shuxing now. Those 2 guys must be better at it than me. After all, they are very cunning. The clone Jia Yan got rid of the twisted harassment in the subspace and shuttled out. Shuanghao still hasn't returned yet. Arriving at his usual resting place, Jia Yan felt a little strange. He has been busy with transactions these days, and he is a little unsure of the whereabouts of Shuanghao, who has disappeared for several days. Because Shuanghao was also busy with certain affairs in the City Alliance, it was common for him to disappear for a day and a half. But when he disappeared for several days without saying hello, he seemed a little weird. But there are no special traces. Black God Jia Yan looked towards the outside world. After he hesitated for a while, a dark blue light moved between his fingers. Not long after, led by the power of a circle-shaped blue formation, the masters of the spiritual domain, who were no longer what they used to be, broke into this area. I've seen you, senior. I wonder why you summoned me. Let me ask you, you are in charge of the external window of this area, but have you noticed Zhuang Hao's movements? Is it the little human who is training with the seniors? There has been no movement about him recently. I haven't heard of him going out for several days. Jia Yanmen had some bad thoughts growing in his heart. Inform the others and quickly investigate the whereabouts of Zhuang Hao. We will live to see him dead or his corpse. Good. This high-level stellar expert from the outside world quickly withdrew. Black God Jia Yan was silent for a long time in the training ground, and finally let out a long sigh. He knows that this matter may have a lot to do with Zhuang Hao's identity. I hope things aren't what I thought. Hucky, hucky hucky. A corner of the city. The figure, as huge as a giant child, was panting violently in a hidden place on the street. He raised his head and looked around. But soon, his eyes narrowed suddenly. Zhuang Hao, I didn't expect that we regard you as our master and have served you for so many years, but you would hide the fact that we are so miserable. A figure. 2 figures. 10 figures. 100 figures. Just in the sight of Zhuang Hao, he slowly walked out. These are all high-end combat capabilities of the City Alliance, and they are also master-level existences in various places. They looked at the huge figure in the hiding place, and all of them felt sad, uncomfortable, and full of hatred. I didn't expect you to be a giant. Tell me, were you the one who secretly did this when we failed in the previous battle? Did you tip off my brother's death? Did you collude with the City Lord's mansion in the so-called war last time to frame us? Each of these creatures is filled with righteous indignation, and all of them carry a blood feud. If you think wrong about many things, you will easily fall into it. Such as now. Zhuang Hao's identity was discovered. He is a giant. What followed was that all the sins over the years were placed on Zhuang Hao. Moreover, under the direction of Zhuang Hao, entering the City Alliance was extremely bloody, and countless people died. It is true that most of the masters present have brothers, sisters, or friends who died in the battle led by Zhuang Hao. When Zhuang Hao's identity was exposed, they all immediately thought that it was Zhuang Hao singing with the City Lord's mansion. The purpose is to weaken the combat power of the city entering alliance. Most of the major masters were framed and killed. Under the guidance of such thoughts, they all went crazy. Each one of them had blood-red eyes and vowed to kill both of them. No. I didn't, Zhuang Hao gasped violently behind the bunker and roared with a painful expression. I didn't. You can ask Senior to do justice. He can definitely prove that I didn't make those mistakes. You bastard, a master of the City Alliance suddenly shouted, I'm about to die, and you want to destroy the relationship between my City Alliance and that Senior. That's right, Zhuang Hao, I finally figured it out. You deliberately wanted to lure that Senior to intervene in my alliance with the city. After sowing discord, you took advantage of that Senior's unfamiliarity with my alliance with the City Lord to join forces with the City Lord's palace to attack us. There is absolutely no possibility for Lian to survive. Zhuang Hao, you are so cruel. I didn't want to believe it at first, but recently I heard rumors that the Senior who was misled by you has been in contact with the City Lord's mansion recently. If so, you are a snake. Xingxin deliberately led the Senior to get closer to the City Lord's palace. Is the next step going to be to join forces with me to enter the city and start a war? The voices outside said that Zhuang Hao was doubting himself. Because it makes sense. But after he was stunned for a moment, he couldn't help but start shouting filial piety. No. You are overthinking it. If that Senior wants to harm you, why bother to go to such trouble? Senior really doesn't want to harm us. We all know this. He was just blinded by you. Zhuang Hao, I'm ashamed of myself for wanting to hand my daughter over to you. I didn't expect you to be so ambitious. The people's pointed words made both of them feel a breath of blood in their chests. They couldn't say anything and almost wanted to vomit blood. Similar scenes have been experienced several times in the past few days. Every time, after a verbal battle, both sides used their own strength to break through. Many of the masters who entered the City Alliance were also surprised to find that this pair of good men was not weak in strength when they were reduced in size. After the body became larger, the strength also increased as the body became larger. To this day, they have discovered that if they don't go all out, Xuanghao may be a little bigger next time, and it will be impossible for them all to defeat Xuanghao. So they took action. In today's battle, they gathered about 100 people with strength comparable to those of the masters. The dangers of small animals, or bugs, are definitely not just words in this world's cities. Many adults were killed by these little bugs together. They really do kill. And for a giant, who is still an incomplete giant, the probability of death is definitely not low when hundreds of small creatures that have reached mid to high level star strength join forces to hunt him down. Go to hell. Xuanghao, you evil deceiver, and let me wait to finish you off. Each of these creatures was filled with righteous indignation, and any attack would be a fatal move. They knew that the big shot had a deep relationship with Xuanghao. In order to avoid being interfered by the big shot, they even used a lot of hiding methods. They really do kill. And for a giant, who is still an incomplete giant, the probability of death is definitely not low when hundreds of small creatures that have reached mid to high level star strength join forces to hunt him down. Go to hell. Xuanghao, you evildoer, just let me wait and finish you off. Each of these creatures was filled with righteous indignation, and any attack would be a fatal move. They knew that the big shot had a deep relationship with Xuanghao. In order to avoid being interfered by the big shot, they even used a lot of hiding methods. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3132. They even knew that the senior valued both of them. But the relationship between the two parties is not as good as they thought. Xuanghao doesn't even know each other's name. It is said that the other party treats Xuanghao in a different light, but it is just an old friend's request. But as long as you understand it with reason and move it with emotion. After the big shots know that Xuanghao is a treacherous person, they will definitely not go along with him. This is the confidence and reason for them to take action. Even my good heart thinks so. The senior's kindness to him was entirely based on the fact that his master was his good friend. At this time, if I am killed, will my senior avenge me like master? Very unlikely. After all, it was just a chance encounter. Over the years, Xuanghao believes that he has gained insight into people's hearts. Boom! Dozens of shadows collided with the huge figures of the pair, making an uproar. On the contrary, the nearby houses, adhering to the unusually tough nature of all objects in this world, only shook dust to the ground. Fighting again? Fight somewhere else. Go away, do you want the noisy person to go to sleep? Suddenly some residents in the house yelled. Fights among children are most likely to occur in this area. Every time some brats start fighting in the middle of the night, they get really annoyed. Quick victory. A group of small creatures looked sternly in their eyes and used all their strength. You must know that they are still small creatures. If any meddlesome resident opens the window and sees them attacking the giants, it will be a big event. Maybe there will be an urgent pest removal mission tomorrow. Bugs killing humans is huge news in any city. Poof. They didn't care and acted freely, showing their strength. Buzz. Just when the two good fists are unable to defeat the four hands, they are about to fall into a desperate situation. Four figures emitting strange light suddenly appeared in front of Xuanghao, blocking all the incoming forces. Catcha. However, some of the bright lights cracked directly and lost their original effect. Pieces of blue light bloomed in the sky. Is it you? Xuanghao's face became more relaxed and a little surprised. Standing in front of him were four masters from the divine realm. They are existences in this world that are similar in size to small creatures, but have completely different fighting skills. Your Highness, please hurry up, we won't be able to delay you for long. Good. Seeing that these four people all used their formation power, but the formation power was attacked by dozens of masters above the star level, and the pieces cracked, the two friends nodded repeatedly. He can do nothing alone. His strength is only at the beginning of the galaxy, and it is not even stable. Facing so many high-level experts from the stars, he was almost useless. Xuanghao ran quickly. After returning to the general appearance of the giant race, Xuanghao found that his movements seemed to have slowed down, at least not as nimble as when he was a small human race. In the era of little humans, running was like lightning, running at lightning speed. But after becoming a giant, running is just running, which seems to be quite slow. But by actually measuring the speed, you can see that his speed has not slowed down. Just because his body size has enlarged and his overall speed remains unchanged, it gives the impression that his speed has slowed down. To use an analogy, between the speed of humans and the speed of ants, humans must be much faster, right? If an ant were as fast as a human being, it would be as fast as the wind on the ground. But if it were enlarged to the size of a human being, it would probably only take one step slowly. Don't let them get away. Friends, don't be deceived by this ambitious man. Aren't you the subordinates of that lord? Why is this so? The faces of many small creatures were extremely ugly. Especially after they realized that the creature hindering their progress was the subordinate of the predecessor master. Some people's hearts suddenly jumped. Some people who felt bad retreated secretly. They were not afraid of the four major creatures that suddenly appeared. At best, these four are similar in strength to them, and some of them are even weak. Any one of them can defeat them if they appear. Of course, this is under the premise that the other party does not use that weird formation power. In short, even if these four powerful men use the power of the formation, they cannot hinder their 100 masters. But so what? The person standing behind him is the senior. If it arouses that person's dissatisfaction, I'm afraid the entire city-entering alliance will be in real catastrophe. You guys stop it? The four foreign masters now assumed the true God Emperor posture. They faced more than 100 people of the same rank, but their expressions did not change. In fact, some people were almost crying inside. How long has it been since they experienced such a proud scene? For decades, in this huge world, they have been like mice crossing the street, carefully trying to survive. At this moment, they had such a proud moment because of the big man's favor. Stop. Friends, I wonder if you are speaking on behalf of that adult when you say this. Yes, the senior behind us once warned us that no matter what happens, we must take good care of the good sir. Well, have you ever seen Xuanghao's changes? His body actually belongs to the giant race. There is definitely a conspiracy behind this matter. If he deceives the person behind you, wouldn't it be an unforgivable sin? The expressions of several masters of the spirit realm who were shrouded behind the power of the formation changed. They didn't know the details, they only knew that they were complying with the black-haired master's wishes and wanted to protect the double good highness. Originally, they were also collecting information nearby. The information about the little human race that the adult first asked them to search for has not yet been obtained. They are already very anxious and stay up all night looking for clues in the outside world, for fear of disappointing that person and losing everything they have now. But on the way, someone saw these guys chasing Xuanghao. So they rushed over. But now, those are good, but they seem to be deceiving everyone? Was even the big shot deceived? This is possible. After all, it is difficult to judge the physical changes of a good couple from the energy. As outsiders, we are not clear about their body structure. It is normal for even that one to be deceived. What about us? It's better to cooperate with them and capture Shuang first, but they are not allowed to kill him. If there is any problem, we will find out by ourselves when we catch him. Good. These few put away the brilliance of the formation's light. Walk. Thank you for your cooperation. Immediately, hundreds of experts continued to chase the pair in the direction where they could easily leave. But just when the masters of the four great gods and realms all restrained their minds, beside them, several shadowy figures quietly approached them. These people have hindered the mission and should be killed. After killing him, it would be appropriate to frame him as a frame of reference. Yes, it would be best to completely push that person to the opposite side of the inner city alliance. These figures were all smiling, each with an illusory appearance. Suddenly, the figures behind the four masters of the great spiritual realm suddenly took action together. Puff. Damn it! Did the four friends misunderstand something? Shuanghao ran wildly on the empty Xiancheng street. Even if he occasionally sees some passers-by, these ordinary giant passers-by cannot be of any help to him at all, and in turn will only harm them. Kid, what's wrong with you? A woman who was working the night shift wanted to come over and help. Sorry, please leave. Shuanghao's expression changed and he quickly asked the other party to leave. I don't know the good heart. The woman suddenly became angry. But after Shuanghao passed by him, the woman's vagina shrank, and then she screamed. Ah! There are so many bugs. Don't come over. Ah! Accompanied by the woman's shouts breaking through the sky and the sound of her dancing and escaping, the couple leaned against a wall and quietly looked out at the outside world. Ha, ha ha ha, ha ha. Little child. He smiled to himself. The level of physical recovery is semi-embarrassing. It has just returned to the level of a giant child. He looks like a little kid. In fact, looking at his face, he looks like a young man. But the giants are the giants. Look at the woman just now. She was so panicked that she almost caused chaos in the pursuit team. Of course, the reason is that the pursuit team was not targeting her, otherwise she would be an ordinary adult. Even with the strength of the giants, they will be killed instantly. Shuanghao analyzed the scene he just saw. The actual emotions are mixed. A passerby helped him slightly hinder his pursuer. I should have been happy. But as a former alliance leader who entered the city, and had personally experienced the despair and loneliness of small creatures, he had different emotions. Even an ordinary passing giant woman with no training experience was able to break through the formation of all the elite soldiers entering the city, almost causing chaos. This shows that the difference in strength between small creatures and giants is too great. When the giants reach adulthood, there is a high probability that they will enter the galaxy level, which is the middle level of the Tao. And if you have some talent in cultivation, you may enter the middle level of the galaxy in your lifetime. The strong men of the giant race are not too strong. Those who reach the domain lord level are the city lord level. Beyond the primary level of domain lord, almost all are at the legendary level. An entire group of people are born to be terrifying top beings. How do other races play with this? Restore my status as a giant and restore it? But if I can survive, I will be destined to work for small creatures in the future. They are weak not because they don't work hard, nor because they want to create a lot of blood, but because they are weak, they just want a normal identity, it's that simple. Cheating Kangzi. Shuanghao suddenly strengthened his heart. After regaining his identity as a giant, he also had a lot of confusion in his heart, and even had great differences in his self-positioning and identity of his personality. He didn't know how he, who was once a high-ranking member of the Urban Alliance, would survive as a giant in the future. But now after seeing the difference in strength between ordinary giants and small creatures, he made a decision. Even if he becomes a giant, he still has to work for peace and friendship between the two races. Got you. Just as he was making his decision, A roar of mourning came from behind him. A figure held up the mantis sword in his hand and was about to slash at his neck. This strong man is one of the best in the city. It was also a very important high-end combat force under Xuang Hao. In this unexpected sneak attack, he had already made up his mind to turn the former leader of the giant clan in front of him and kill him directly on the spot, which also ended their bad relationship for so many years. "It's you." Xuang Hao turned around and saw the flash of sword light, and immediately recognized the person. At the same time, he shrank his neck, and then suddenly his soul flew out of the sky. He forgot that he was already a giant. He could dodge the past moves at will, but now he couldn't dodge them in the same way. The giant race has advantages and disadvantages. For example, because of his huge size, he cannot avoid this fatal blow. "God wants to kill me." Xuang Hao was so shocked that he closed his eyes. Puff. But soon, he heard a dull voice. "You little guy, what are you doing running around? You can help me find you easily." Hearing this extremely familiar voice, he suddenly opened his eyes. Sure enough, under the surprised and complicated gazes of his two friends, he stood in front of his eyes and used a huge formation halo to block all the attacks. It was an existence that was so small that it was difficult to detect it easily. Senior, you. Sulfuric acid. A large number of metal weapons, attacking the feet, and even biological shadows, collided and fell to the ground from the front of the formation's light. Many masters have been injured because of this block. But no one died. Their faces were filled with disbelief and some horror. You know, this person showed up at this time and caught their attack on the junior. It's impossible to say how he will deal with them next. Before, who said before, ahem, this lord wouldn't mind having a good relationship. He personally came to the rescue in the middle of the night. Who said he didn't have much affection for Xuang Hao? Damn it! Some of the masters who entered the City Alliance had extremely ugly expressions. However, among the nearly 100 figures, the eyes of a few quickly wandered, looking into the darkness in other directions. Be prepared to find an opportunity to evacuate in the ensuing chaos. Those guys, don't even think about escaping. You've hurt a few of my other friends, and now you're thinking of running away. It's a bit too whimsical. At this moment, the tiny human creature that put away the power of the formation turned its attention to these sneaky guys. The several major existences pointed out by the Black God Jia Yan suddenly became the focus of attention of all the Alliance experts who entered the city. Who is this? I don't know you. Did you invite me? No, I don't know him. You don't know each other? But these guys just shouted and chased me the hardest. That's right, I was instigated by him just now to pursue and kill the good couple at all costs. What's going on? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3133. Jia Yan floats in front of everyone. The eyes are peaceful. Let me go. I'm sorry, I don't dare anymore. But the few masters who escaped were all restrained by the power of the formation that was ambushed on the ground at an unknown time. Several restraints on one person were like being enclosed in a house, trapping them back. Their faces were all pale. Senior. Jia Yan looked back and looked at the couple who were a little nervous and embarrassed. He sighed softly and said, Xuang Hao, you don't have to be so estranged from me. Your master and I are actually, life and death friends. His apprentice is my apprentice. If something goes wrong with you, I won't go back so you can explain it to him. Do you understand what I mean? I know. I'm sorry. His good eyes were red, and his eyes were filled with mist. Only then did he realize that the senior valued him more than he imagined. At this point, those small creatures who were trying to escape were caught in front of Jia Yan and others. I seem to know this person. Isn't he from the city lord's mansion? Yes, I know this guy. When this guy went to work in the city lord's mansion, he showed off his power for a while. How could he? So that's it, you were actually sent by the city lord's palace to sneak into our team. Tell me, what is your purpose? Sowing discord. For a moment, the targets of everyone's indignation were those small creatures trapped in the power of the formation. They were obviously at the lower level of the stars, but within the power of the formation, they were like sitting in a trapped city, unable to break through at all. Surrounded and cursed by dozens of friends who had known them before, the group immediately became cowardly. Just like Yan Ke. Sir, sir. Just when Jia Yan and others were criticizing these guys, several staggering figures walked out of the alley next to them. The injuries were serious. Don't let them go, they sneak up on me, I'll wait. It turned out to be the 4 powerful god emperors from the divine realm who were helping Shuang Hao just now. At this time, everyone's eyes changed again. They began to talk about him. Because of the siege just now, some of them secretly took action. But you must not take the initiative to stand up now, otherwise there may be danger on the cusp of the storm. On the other hand, there seemed to be nothing strange about the tiny creature that everyone was observing carefully, the black god Jia Yan. To him, those powerful men in the realm of the gods were just subordinates he recruited casually. In other words, they were not even subordinates, but just people to be used. Now that the real body can go out to the outside world, it only takes a certain period of time, and no matter how many subordinates he wants to bring in, it depends on whether he wants it or not. It doesn't matter if these people die. But the two are different. Has a unique meaning. Do you think these people are from the city lord's mansion? Don't wait for anyone to say anything else. Jia Yan then blocked everyone's mouths and said, it doesn't look like it. I'm afraid they are planning to take advantage of your misunderstanding to stir up hostility between us and the city lord's palace. Their true identity should be an outside rebel organization. Ah! Everyone asked, are these guys a rebel organization? Some people's expressions changed, and they looked at Jia Yan and understood something. Yes, he should be a member of the rebel organization. Otherwise, no matter how sinister the city lord's mansion is, it would not be like this. Jia Yan looked at those smart people and nodded calmly. Then turning to the trapped attackers, he said calmly, since you are part of the rebel organization and almost killed your friends below, then let me punish you. The demeanor of the trapped small creatures suddenly changed, and one of them was about to say something. Creak. I saw several blue circles of light trapping him, suddenly squeezing towards the middle. A scene not suitable for children appeared. In the bloody scene, a large amount of various liquids exploded, and they were all trapped in the air by the power of the formation. It was like flesh and blood being broken into pieces, but contained in a bag. Sir, please spare me and wait, let's all talk. It's the city, poof. We are. Jia Yan's eyes were strangely cold, and the power of the formation was mixed with the other, releasing all the power of the formation. From time to time there were crackling sounds caused by squeezing in the sky. Those who wanted to speak were all blocked by these forces and could never speak again. Many small creatures below were as silent as cicadas. Especially some of the leaders, their legs were trembling at this time. Because they were the ones leading the siege on Zhuanghao, if this senior still wanted to hold them accountable, I'm afraid the people above who were crushed by the power of the formation would be a lesson to others. Snap, snap, snap. As Jia Yan released the power of the formation onto the nearby garbage pile, a large amount of flesh and blood flowed into the garbage pile. The bloody scene has a great impact on people. It won't be long before low-end creatures will come and devour the bodies of these guys. It can be considered as waste. Jia Yan said calmly. After throwing all the flesh and blood in, he moved his fingertips, and all the blue formation power shrank and became smaller, returning to his fingertips. Hello, now it's your turn to speak. He looked at Zhuang Hao, who had not moved to express his position. What are you going to do with these guys? He glanced at the group of motionless city-entering alliance masters on the ground. The implication was that if Ruo Shuang was ready to take action, he wouldn't mind helping. Well, the good eyes became complicated. He is not a good person. In the past days, when he was the lord of the alliance into the city, he even used his status as the leader to kill many masters of the alliance into the city. He recognized several people present as the friends or relatives he had killed. They came to hunt him down, and Zhuang Hao felt a little complicated, because this group of people was completely justified. But, Senior, forget it. It's better to dissolve enemies than to make enemies. I'm tired. I don't need to kill anymore. Let them go. Everyone's eyes also became complicated. The leaders let out a long sigh, and someone stepped out from the crowd and hugged their feet. Then he left without looking back. Several others also came forward in an endless stream, clasping their fists, clasping their feet, or bowing. Of course, we have not forgotten Jia Yan, the terrifyingly powerful person who holds the power of life and death for them. There may be some internal agents from the city lord's mansion, and there may even be a lot of them. But Jia Yan didn't care and just let him go. Watch them leave. The remote area of the street, which was full of small creatures just now, soon became silent. On the quiet streets at night, the roars of puppy-like creatures could be heard from time to time. There is an eerie sense of tranquility. Senior, needless to say, come back with me. There may be some changes recently. If you can, don't stay in Xiancheng. Variable. Shuang Hao's body trembled, and he looked at the senior beside him with some understanding. Okay, I'd better go. I've had enough of staying here. His family is actually still alive, but they may not be doing well. His father is in exile and his mother is homeless. The best situation now is to search for his family. He had mastered the fighting skills newly taught by his predecessors, but at this time, the flame of fanaticism gradually extinguished in his heart, and he no longer wanted to fight. Jia Yan looked at him and felt the young man's heart, and couldn't help but sigh. The road to becoming a strong man is full of similar blows. Jia Yan is no exception. But he got through it. Just like this, it doesn't mean that he looks down on those who fail halfway. Those who fail are mostly because of ties, family ties, friendship, love, and many other beautiful things, and they begin to pay less attention to cultivation. Like Zhuang Hao, there are many people who are tired. Jia Yan thinks that he is no better than them. He is just a reckless man, even a relatively cold person. Zhuang Hao gave up, which is not a bad thing. Okay, I will arrange for you to leave the city tomorrow. In addition, I will give you 1 or 2 life-saving items to ensure that you are safe from several battles. Thank you, Senior. Shuang nodded excitedly. The other party claimed to be his master's friend, and they met by chance, but he was willing to do so much for him, which was enough to move him. It's a pity that in the end, I still couldn't see Master. After entering the city, the alliance fell apart overnight. It is said that the person who took action was the mysterious extraterrestrial visitor. As for the city lord's mansion, the information received is quite good. The city lord who got this information, and the lay master disciples who counted the benefits of the transaction in the city lord's mansion, behaved differently. The city owner, who had been fighting against the Ruchan alliance for decades, was naturally smiling. After all, even if the city alliance cannot be said to be powerful, it is like a dogskin plaster and has always been a cause of headache for the city lord's mansion. Now that it has been hit hard again, they must be happy because they have not mobilized their strength and resources to solve it. As for Lay Master's disciples, Gujing Bubo was the only one. To them, Xiancheng affairs are like children playing house, and they don't take it to heart at all. Xiancheng was destroyed, but no one was moved. There were so many small cities like Xiancheng in the dynasty. What's more important is whether the person's move will affect their transaction. If it were affected, the group of dead and injured animals would really die. The second day. In the early morning, a space more than 10 million kilometers outside the city wriggled like ripples. Poof. Soon, the ripples turned into actual cracks, revealing a crack. A young giant of 300 to 400 kilometers in size walked out of it with a blank look. Upon closer inspection, there was an extremely small human figure of over 1.7 meters floating in front of him like dust. Senior. Okay, I sent you here. Even if there are informants and forces who want to hunt you down, they won't be able to find you. Let's go. His eyes were very dark. There is both reluctance and a sense of relief. The Xiancheng behind him was looming, but looking back, it seemed to be shrouded in mist. At this time, to his good eyes, it looked like a cage. His life has been trapped in it for decades, with no way out. After looking behind you, look at the large mountain forest and the mountain forest road in front of you. The sun is shining brightly and the air is fresh, as if it is a sign of something. He suddenly had a new understanding. It's okay to leave. Move the dead and move the living. If you go elsewhere, you can also practice the cultivation techniques taught by me and your master. Jia Yan's words made his good eyes tremble, and he said with some excitement, Senior, so, can I still practice the skills you taught me? Of course I can, silly boy, since I taught you, I just let you practice. My master, will you still admit that I am his disciple? Of course it will. Jia Yan laughed, don't you think that because of your choice, your master and I will give up on you? If your master's disciples accept and give up so easily, then it would be unavoidable for him to accept this disciple. It's so freewheeling. Of course, Black God Jia Yan felt a little guilty in his heart. At least Zhuang Hao's disciple is indeed accepted as he pleases, including the other party's father. The words will never be spoken. Thank you, Senior, for your grace. The corners of Zhuang Hao's mouth moved, but in the end he only said the sentence. Jia Yan shook his head, flew on his good shoulders, and slapped him who was covered with luggage, making him stagger. Go, child, there may be many hardships in the future, but don't forget that you are your master's disciple. Secondly, let me tell you, you may think that your master is not strong enough. But I can tell you clearly that your master is truly the most talented person in the world. His current strength. But he is far better than me, so you can hold your head high. Goodbye. After saying that, Jia Yan once again drilled into the torn subspace, and soon the cracks closed and disappeared. Zhuang Hao was a little shocked, and looked back at the empty road. My master is stronger than my predecessors. His eyes lit up. Of course I can, silly boy, since I taught you, I just let you practice. My master, will you still admit that I am his disciple? Of course it will. Jia Yan laughed, don't you think that because of your choice, your master and I will give up on you? If your master's disciples accept and give up so easily, then it would be unavoidable for him to accept this disciple. It's so freewheeling. Of course, Black God Jia Yan felt a little guilty in his heart. At least Zhuang Hao's disciple is indeed accepted as he pleases, including the other party's father. The words will never be spoken. Thank you, Senior, for your grace. The corner of Zhuang Hao's mouth moved, in the end, he only said the sentence. Jia Yan shook his head, flew on his good shoulders, and slapped him who was covered with luggage, making him stagger. Go, child, there may be many hardships in the future, but don't forget that you are your master's disciple. Secondly, let me tell you, you may think that your master is not strong enough. But I can tell you clearly that your master is truly the most talented person in the world. His current strength. But he is far better than me, so you can hold your head high. Goodbye. After saying that, Jia Yan once again drilled into the torn subspace, and soon the cracks closed and disappeared. Xuanghao was a little shocked, and looked back at the empty road. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3134. White rays of light interspersed between the two UFOs. Whoosh. White lights shot out. Less than or equal to ran less than or equal to less than or equal to less than or equal to said. The flying saucer-shaped aircraft was hit by a white light, and a little fire appeared directly on the edge of the circle. Boom boom boom. He struck the ground with a bright light. The flying stick took advantage of the opportunity and chased down quickly in the air. But the flying saucer-shaped thing suddenly turned around in the air and actually shot a white light at this time. Boom. This white light hit the flying stick UFO, exploding its slender body into a ball of flame. Both flying objects fell downwards while emitting thick smoke. But they still didn't stop attacking each other. White light says. These two things seem to have a life and death feud, constantly attacking each other in the air. In the city below, some humans also saw this scene, but if the scene had been in the past, it might have been a UFO sighting that would have made the whole world uproar. But at this time, people were just afraid of those attacks. It will affect myself instead of thinking about shooting videos. Whoosh. Two strange-looking UFOs were attacking each other, no longer concealing their whereabouts above human heads, but no one paid attention to their figures. After all, on the Earth now, not only these weird flying objects appear, but also Metal the monster army, the giant mosquito monster, and those strange spider-type monsters are all surprising things. Now if something appears, at least humans will not make such a fuss now. Preserving life is what humans think about now. After all, this is not a time when monsters are a vulnerable group and humans are very surprised to see them. If humans continue like this, from now on, monsters should be surprised to see humans. So their appearance is not a good thing. Of course, this incident will be broadcast by the media, making everyone on the Earth more solemn, and more weird things will appear on the Earth. It seems that this world is about to become the end of the world. Boom 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 boom. A small bluish-gray stone hit the ground, causing the soil on the ground to fly up and dent the entire ground. It created a large crater with a diameter of nearly 20 meters. The giant mosquito's body had already leaped into the air before the explosion. The red light surged. Everything on the ground was bathed in high temperature. In the time after the red light surged, the big mosquito had already rushed towards the metal monsters below. Each of these monsters was affected by the shock wave, and some were in an extremely chaotic state. Therefore, the big mosquitoes at this time can seize the opportunity and kill them. That is the best time. Click. Phew. The metal monsters turned into corpses, unable to move in the sharp front legs of the giant mosquito. And Jia Yan's body was interspersed among these corpses. From time to time, there are figures of metal monsters falling to the ground. Emerge in this little war zone. This war zone does not look like a huge battlefield, but the number of deaths and injuries caused by metal monsters can shock many human armies. When the human army encounters a small army of metal monsters, there is usually a huge amount of movement. However, such a large movement only causes a small amount of casualties to the metal monster. Sometimes an army of 10,000 people even fights with the metal monster. A team of 100 encounters. But it could only cause less than half of the opponent's losses, and then his side began to collapse. Therefore, when some media and humans saw a giant mosquito monster outside Shanghai actually fighting a metal monster, they immediately felt as if they had heard some huge good news. This matter was exaggerated, and in some articles, instead of condemning the giant mosquito monster, they vigorously advocated for the betterment of this giant mosquito race. Humans are such realistic animals. What is good for them means that it is also harmonious to you. But if you feel that you are of no benefit and have no use value, then you will be trampled on ruthlessly. Jia Yan, who was on the battlefield, didn't know how important his affairs were to the humans in Shanghai. Because of his presence, some real high-level officials came to the city. All he knew was that there was his family in the city, and he had to take care of his family when he was promoted. So at this time, of course, he was working hard to kill those metal monsters in this place. Boom boom boom. A huge explosion sounded. This was a huge explosion caused by the self-destruction of the metal monster. However, their current self-destruction had an extremely slight impact on Jia Yan. Because Jia Yan is a big mosquito with a huge combat IQ. Although his current combat power has not increased much compared to before, he has fought against metal monsters more times. Now he has grasped some of the weaknesses of metal monsters' fighting habits very accurately, so the current big mosquito, at least for the metal monster, he already has a great way to fight against it. What is only reflected in the battle is that his combat power has soared. He can deal with ordinary metal monster teams very easily, and he is also very skilled in using tactics with blue-gray pebbles. Therefore, dealing with the small army of metal monsters is a near miss. Not long after, this metal monster team with 70 metal monsters was finally attacked by Jia Yan's series of attacks. It has become lifeless. Jia Yan is also collecting his own harvest. Since his attack methods have become more effortless, the gains this time are also huge. Out of a team of 70 metal monsters, I actually harvested 40 blue-gray pebbles. Jia Yan calculated the harvest this time and felt a little surprised. At this time, he had already harvested a lot of blue-gray pebbles, so when he calculated all his harvest, his expression immediately became filled with joy. The total has reached 120. There is still one night left before the 200 I mentioned. If you work hard, you should still have a chance. Jia Yan felt a little calmer. He has already harvested a lot of blue-gray pebbles in this place. As an intelligent creature, he naturally knows that he cannot stay in one place for too long, so at this time, he immediately plans to change places. Continue to take action. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fun if those buildings made of metal monsters shoot some red light to attack him. Jia Yan's body grew taller. Get out of this place. Yin 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 yin. The sound of flying mosquitoes keeps ringing in this world. Search for books. Jia Yan's current flight airspace has reached 2,500 meters. At this time, it is not that his resistance to temperature has increased, but that this place is in the Jiangnan area, and the temperature is not as low as in the north. As a flying creature, he likes high places very much in terms of flying psychology, so he wants to fly to high places as much as possible. But for regular flying, 2,500 meters and above is his limit. If it's just about the height, he can fly to more than 5,000 meters to try, but that's not necessary, and he can't stay at such a high place for a long time. And when Jia Yan was flying at an altitude of 2,500 meters, trying to fly towards the next hunting spot. Whoosh! White brilliance lit up near Jia Yan's body. The color of this brilliance and its speed are very familiar to Jia Yan recently. It almost became his nightmare. That was the color that the UFO once unleashed on him by Qinghai Lake. Jia Yan's shock was simply a feeling of horror. For him, UFO is an existence that he cannot fight against now, but that guy actually chased him here? Jia Yan's body made an extremely disguised movement in the air, but he remembered that the UFO that day did not hit him because of his disguise. So at this time, he made this action. After Jia Yan made this move in the air, he suddenly became very vigilant and directly used his fastest flying speed. Run down.